All right, I call the June 22nd meeting of the school committee to order. For the second night in a row, or second meeting in a row anyway, we've got a fairly jam-packed agenda. So let me just do a quick walk of the agenda and then we'll jump in. So we'll start with public comment. Move for anything that's not on the agenda tonight. We'll move to our consent agenda. We'll go through reports. Our first new business item, we've got two of the board members from the CPAC who are here tonight to provide their year-end update. And then Ms. Roach will go through the year-end personnel update. When we move into the remainder of the new business section, we'll hear Dr. Milczewski's recommendation and take a vote to appoint, subject to negotiations, a new director of finance and operations. Dr. Hardy will present the learning and teaching year-end update. Dr. Milczewski will introduce and overview the district strategic plan. We will review and approve the Killam principal search process. We will pick up something that we sort of left off in the last meeting, which is voting to approve the FY23 budget transfers. And then Mr. Wise, Tom and Sarah, I don't know why I went formal there all of a sudden. Tom and Sarah will present the legal counsel, the Student Services Legal Counsel Subcommittee recommendation, and we will vote to approve that recommendation as well. We also will take up a letter in support of a park grant application, which we'll talk about more when we get there. We'll consider and take a vote to approve a contribution to the Special Education Stabilization Fund that was created by town meeting. We've got 8 policies up for amendment, so we'll approve those amendments, discuss and approve those amendments. We've got 1 policy which we will review and vote to revoke tonight. This is getting long. We're going to review Dr. Milczewski's summative evaluation for the year, the consensus summative evaluation, and then at the end of the night when we're all tired and cranky, we'll do our reorg. So I think that was well done on my part. All right.
Marvelous.
So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. We'll start with public comment for anything that is not on the agenda tonight. All right, seeing none. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Seconded by Chuck. Any discussion from the committee?
Nope. No.
Ms. Baton, just the audit report, that's just sort of an FYI. We're just acknowledging it. There's no formal approval or anything required, of course.
Correct.
Correct? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. One question.
Sure.
So you mentioned it was because of the ARPA money. Is it because we were taking just the portion we used that last year and not the whole 2 million, and we were supposed to do the other? Or can you just explain the difference between what that was?
Absolutely. Because the Select Board and School Committee voted to receive the $2 million of opera funds at the end of May 2022, the auditor wanted us to recognize those funds, even though we don't plan to use those funds until the next several years. Exactly.
Okay.
So that was the only sticking point. Both the director of finance at the town hall and I, spoke with the auditor. We really wanted to understand that, and so we made the amendment.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? All opposed? It carries 6-0. Let's go to reports, and I will start with Dr. Stice.
Thank you. Dr. Hardy and I have just one quick shout out we would like to do tonight. Seth and John at the YMCA have been absolutely amazing. We had a group of students that had no summer programming and really didn't have the means to engage in summer programming, and not only were they able to find slots for the students, they're helping us with transportation. So we have a core group of about 10 or so students, MLL students, and the Y actually was able to find someone who speaks their primary language. And it just shows how Reading comes together to support its community members, and we couldn't be more thrilled with the partnership. So we just wanted to publicly thank them for helping us with that.
Great. Dr. Hardy, that's your report as well, to be clear? Okay, thank you. Ms. Baton.
Yes, I'll try to be super brief, but in line with giving shout-outs to staff, I wanted to thank 3 team members this evening. One is Joe Huggins and his facilities team with Kevin Gerstner's and Kevin Kabuzzi's help. They've done so much for us throughout this whole year, and I think 3 highlights are completing the stadium project here at RMHS. They also have working diligently throughout the spring and into the summer, renovating and building instructional and adult spaces in our schools to accommodate our new staff. And if any of you have been over to the Parker Middle School recently, you might have seen that they're beginning work on our Parker roof replacement. I'd also like to thank Julian Carr, our network manager, and his team of tech staff. Julian and his team successfully deployed 35 applications on a single sign-on system over this past year, which is allowing students and staff to efficiently and quickly gain access to teaching and learning apps, saving a great deal of time so that more time can be spent on teaching and learning. He worked with the building principals this year to conduct MCAS testing across the district simultaneously rather than staggering the schedule, which allowed our students to take the test uninterrupted with the investment that you all have approved in our network program. He's been able to make improvements to allow us to do that. And then lastly, he has provided a vetting process for all of our new and existing applications to ensure that students' privacy is protected. And then lastly, a shout out, last but not least, to Catherine Franzetti, our school nutrition director, and her staff. Catherine has increased student participation by nearly 9% across the district, and her goal was 5%, so she has just knocked it out of the ballpark. She's conducted a department-wide assessment and has developed a 3-year financial and capital improvement plan that's sustainable and will help continue to support our students in their nutritional needs. And then lastly, she's partnered with organizations such as Project Bread, the town's insurance company, Maya, and Framingham University's John Stalker Institute to provide training on the culinary arts, wellness, and allergen training, all free or through a grant. So those are just a few of the many highlights that these teams have accomplished this year. So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Milczewski.
One shout out, and that goes to our students, to our RMHS boys lacrosse team, who, as the community knows, won the state championship last weekend on Father's Day. It's obviously a huge athletic accomplishment to be state champions. I had a conversation with Coach Hardy the other day too, and he just kept going back to the point of, like, while he's really proud of the athletic accomplishment, he's just more proud of the quality of just the individual he has on his team. One thing that I quickly learned about the team too was just their commitment to acting in the right way, both individually and as a team, and representing themselves in our community with respect, with integrity. I think stuck out to me when we had our last unified basketball game here. He had all of his team sitting down watching the game, and the students were in there getting rowdy and cheering the team on. And I just think that it's just one small example too of just their commitment to being leaders in our community. So obviously, I think both myself and Coach Hardy in our community wanted to congratulate the team on that accomplishment, and also just thank them for, also upholding what we want all of our student athletes to embody in our community too. So congratulations to all of the boys lacrosse team. What a tremendous accomplishment.
Excellent. Why don't we go to liaison reports, and I will start with Chuck.
Thank you, Sean. So last week, the SWEC, the Simons Way Exploratory Committee met, and the main discussion at the entire meeting was to finalize what we wanted to see in the RFI that's being let. It's our request for information is very different than an RFQ, but just to kind of get a sense for whether anyone would be interested, and that would be a situation where we had a public-private partnership. So we discussed that for the entire meeting, and we'll meet. I think we meet again next week or a week to kind of finalize so that can go out. The Recreation Committee met as well last week, and that meeting was predominantly to discuss the start of Phase 2 of the Birch Meadow project. And for people who don't know, Phase 2 is the area by the Little League baseball field behind it there, the tennis courts, the basketball courts. There were some pickleball courts there, but we decided probably, with all the noise and stuff, so we're looking at where else they can go other than there, because there's neighbors right abutting that part of it. So we talked about that and just kind of the next steps for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Erin?
On behalf of PAIR, I just want to give another plug for the Juneteenth celebration that's happening on Saturday. It's going to be from 1 to 7 p.m. Sounds really fantastic. They're going to have musical performances, drumming, dancing, DJ, really awesome lineup of speakers, food. So I know there's a lot going on this weekend. There's also Porch Fest, but just wanted to give a plug for that.
Thank you. Sarah?
Just a quick update, the legal counsel subcommittee met twice last week to finalize interviews, I think that was last week, and to convene, to make a recommendation, which you'll hear about later tonight.
Great. Tom?
She likes to take that one from me, I like it.
I know, like when you go reverse order.
We'll cover that in more detail. The audit committee met to review the RMLD audit last Thursday, which had no findings of any sort of negative consequence. There was one lesson learned about some sort of, spoofing / identity type stuff that they went through, but that wasn't an audit issue necessarily, just a point of note. So that we approved or recommended approval for as part of that committee. In addition to that, I wanted to share some notes from a last conversation I had with Jada. She was going to share at our last meeting, but because the meeting was running long, she didn't feel like it was appropriate to share. So she, a couple things she wanted us to know feedback-wise, and I think some of it, the reason I'm sharing is because I think it aligns with a little bit of what Eunice is going to share about what the CPAC's doing. I think it aligns a little bit with sense of belonging stuff as well, and I think it kind of will fit into those. So, one, as we'll go through, I'll kind of highlight those. But one thing she said is she thinks we should do more polling of students and parents for class opportunities. Her perception is that students don't get to learn what they want until they get into college. She said as well that the schools and town should do better at, sharing the resources that are available for people. This is where, the work that's going on right now, that Maria's kind of working through Facebook and social networking and all that kind of fun stuff fits. But a little bit more on the academic side is where are resources that they can use for research in particular, right? How do they access JSTOR through BPL? How do they access Libby language newspapers through RPL? Those should kind of be standard handouts at the beginning of social studies or English classes, especially at the high school level when they have to do research type stuff. So that was one of her feedback points there. She also mentioned that she'd like to see more homework choice or emphasis on self-management of work. She really, called out Mr. Albright is doing a great job of that, of providing a couple different avenues of entry while still demonstrating the excellence that was necessary there. And she said, conversely, she has a lot of assignments where she has to fill in prescriptive presentations and she just kind of has to fill in the blank. And so I felt that fit with our rigor conversations as well. And so she really wanted to hit on that. More of a dictation of what to do versus the guidance of what to do type concept. She mentioned she'd like to see an extension of senior privilege to junior privilege here at the high school. She just feels like some juniors are ready, especially if they had cars. And just locking them here to do nothing doesn't really serve her purpose. She did say as a avenue, because she hears the communication is a problem, there's a system that she had at her old school called RAVE that might be interesting in looking at from an administrative perspective to communicate with people in case there's like, don't come back to school, stay away, something happened or something like that. So that's just a note. She really wanted people to look more into elementary and secondary language studies, which is one of the things we are looking at, especially at the elementary level. And in particular, she felt like it was inequitable, unfair that the Spanish students didn't get as cool of a trip as the French students. I've heard that many times, so, figuring out what we can do that's more robust in the Spanish trip, other than, that's parallel to the Quebec trip, or comparable to the Quebec trip. And then on the sense of belonging note, she said her perspective is that, there should be more grade or all-school meetings that help create roots for students. And she said, maybe expanding on the idea of what a homeroom is, or really using flex at the high school, and kind of continuing the same grouping of kids from year to year to year, so you have kind of a base of people that you're with all the time. So it's not just, the W to Zs, which is where my son sits, for the sophomores. She wanted it to also, so that is there, but she also wanted it to be vertical. So cohort align, seniors, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, all in the same type of flex if possible to create more of a sense of community. That would be a problem for our guidance department and what they do with the 9th and 10th grade stuff, but that was something she felt like, in terms of belonging, having a sense of found family at school, she felt like flex could be used more efficiently for that. So that's just some of the stuff she wanted to share. We didn't get a chance, obviously, to have other meetings with them. We had the scheduling issues, but I felt like it was important her voice be heard or echoed here for us to understand as well.
Jada's still bringing it even after she's departed. I appreciate that. That's great. Thank you, Tom. Carla?
Thank you, Sean. The Killam School Building Committee met yesterday. We had a little change of events where Turva, who was our first choice for OPM, withdrew from the process. Fidel received a couple of letters of concerns from 2 firms talking about, their concerns were on how Turva presented their body of work and how it was presented. Turva's a relatively new company to the MSBA process. I think part of the paperwork for MSBA is kind of prescriptive, and it's with the assumption that people have a certain amount of, quite a bit of experience. So it was just, certainly, I firmly believe there was no malintent because the company was wonderful to work with, really above board with everything. They had a conversation with MSBA, the town had a conversation with MSBA, and they decided to withdraw from the process. So we were, disappointed but grateful too, because they pulled out of the process to allow us to move on to our second place person, a company, which was Colliers, who has a ton of experience. We had an emergency meeting yesterday to direct Fidel to enter into contract negotiations with Colliers, which they're going to wrap up and get paperwork to MSBA tomorrow, so we're going to keep on schedule. So just a little hiccup, turn of events, but it was a good experience, and we're grateful for Turva to kind of let us move along with our process.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
Maybe the question I don't want to ask or I want to answer to, but was Colliers one of the 2 that wrote a letter against her?
They were not.
Okay.
They got an early Christmas present.
At least there's no conflict there, so.
The 2 people, one of them was left field, who was our 5th out of 6th choice, and one was Vertex, who wasn't even involved in our project. So Colliers was surprised and happy about it, obviously.
So with Turva, did they, you said it allows us to continue. Would we have been in breach of the process if we had stuck with them? Is that, it seems to me that, if they didn't have experience, how are they ever going to get it if they don't get a
Construction experience and experience specifically in the MSBA process are 2 different things.
Yeah.
Their people who they presented to us as their project team had a lot of experience, but they weren't working for Turva at the time. So when Turva put down that this is the experience that they had, it was more of not a company-wide experience, more of the experience of our team. So it was, I think it could have just been presented a little better. I don't think Turva will ever make that mistake again. And like I said, they're a really good group of people, and
that's what they did is business. That's what you put together the right team,
Exactly, right. It was, Colliers will be great for us, so we're happy that we can keep our schedule and just move along.
Put this in the category of the MSBA being very prescriptive, I think. All set?
Thank you.
Okay. And I have no report tonight. So with that, we will move to the CPAC team and the year-end update. Let's get your presentation fired up here. Tom, you've got the. I'm clicking forward for them. No slideshow. I'm gonna let you, I messed it up. All right, take it away. So we've learned recently that, next slide certainly works. Our last presenters who sat over there, who had Dr. Milczewski drive, flash spirit fingers at him when they were ready for the next slide. So whatever works for you, so.
You gotta go higher.
Wait, what do we do?
So Dr. Miller, sorry.
Jazz hands.
Jazz hands.
Mine was not here, and I just have the jazz hands.
Jazz hands.
The father of
Yeah.
girls, right here.
You got their control.
Yeah, or we can give you the clicker, whatever's easy.
I just say next slide.
Yeah, you could just
You could just say next slide.
Or it's easier to do something more fun.
Okay.
That's what they're teasing you to do.
Got you, all right, okay.
We had the Robockets team here last time, and they.
Yeah,
they-
I watched it online.
Yeah,
and
they
I
gave
saw
direction
that, so
by
I was trying to
by
take
using
notes,
jazz hands. It was
but I didn't notice the jazz hands. Okay, so, all right, got it. All right, well, hello, well, thank you so much for having us. I'm Maria Morgan. I'm one of the board members. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Eunice Kenyon.
Also a board member. And then we have two other board members who are not with us tonight. Lindsay Conti, she joined, when did she join? In October, I think. And Zia Leonard just joined us in April. So we are a four-person board, and we're very happy to be here to speak about our year in CPAC. Okay. So last year, we organized our presentation with the mission statement, which we thought worked well, so we'll do it again. So I'll try not to read every slide, but I think it is important to know what our mission is. So we work for the okay, so first of all, CPAC stands for Special Education Parent Advisory Council. Our mission is to work for the understanding of, respect for, and support of all children with special needs in the community. We promote a network of parents of children with special needs and provide a forum to share information. We advise the Director of Student Services, the school committee, and superintendent on special education programs and policies and parent and teacher training needs. We promote communication and sharing of information between CPAC members, local, state, and national organizations, councils, and groups, as well as within the community, to encourage understanding, acceptance, and inclusion of students with special needs. And we provide no, we don't provide international workshops, but we provide informational workshops to parents, educators, students, and professionals. And I think we did an amazing job in all of these things this year. I think we had a fantastic year, and we're excited to tell you about it. So a little snapshot of 2022 to 2023. So Eunice and I are consistent board members from last year. We both joined on in the winter of the previous school year. And we did have another board member, Laura Jolson, who also joined us at that time. And then she stayed on until she resigned because she moved out of the country. So we did lose one, but then we gained two with Lindsay and Zia. And we feel like we are moving beyond getting the word out. So I was looking up something online, and I found an article from 2013, and it was about the CPAC presentation to the school committee, and their big goal was to get the word out about CPAC. And then I remember when I first presented to you guys during the pandemic, 2020, that was our goal, was to get the word out. And it still felt like last year was kind of getting the word out, but also with new board members, there's always like a learning curve, and it takes time to kind of get everybody going. And so I feel like we've been able to move past that this year, which is awesome. We have some momentum, which we're so thrilled about. So good, strong momentum this year, building on it. We want to continue our external relationships. So outside of our like parent council, So one way we did that was obviously working with student services and reviews. I feel like the beginning of the year was just reviews. And we had lots of other hopes and dreams for CPAC this year, and that took a lot of focus, but it was such important work, and we were heavily involved in that work. Jen and Allison consulted with us quite a bit. We were able to communicate with parents quite a bit. We came and gave some feedback here. They came to meetings, and there was just a lot of reviewing going on. So it's still happening, the work is still going on, but we were definitely part of that. And continued partnership with student services, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. And then we wanted to strengthen the internal culture this year, so really bring a lot of parents together, offer workshops that parents want to hear, getting past just, how do you run CPAC? We're kind of getting past that and really getting into some great meat of work that we're doing. And we're actively trying to get more active involvement from general council members, so wherever we can. We now have point people at each of the elementary schools, and I think we have them at both of the middle schools now too, which is helpful just to personalize the connection between CPAC and the principal when it comes to communicating information. Just different things, we had flyers that we wanted to pass out at the schools, and we were able to put the word out, and, people that I've never even met responded, and, oh yeah, I can do that, I can pass out those flyers. More participation at our events, new faces, old faces, so I feel like it's not the days of Sarah, the little engine that could, running CPAC all by herself. I feel like, I know you had a strong crew, supporting you back then too, but I feel like we have a wider net now, and we're just continually trying to widen that net and really engage general council members. And also finding the underreached groups and identifying blind spots and acting accordingly. So those themes will come up tonight. And let's see what's next. Am I doing this?
I can do it.
Okay.
Okay, this is just it's CPAC by the numbers. So our Facebook followers is 509 people. We've seen an increase steadily over the year of new followers over time. And our reach from towards the end of last May to June, mid-June, was 2,411 people. Our Facebook engagement is higher than the average overall Facebook engagement. We have 315 people that sign up to receive our monthly newsletter, and we started Instagram last year, and we currently have 88 followers. During the year, we spent out. We're gonna break this down a little bit more later, but we had about 87 special needs promotions for parents, promoting other workshops and other opportunities for their families, news stories, and so forth.
Great, okay. So one thing we did this year, like I said, we really wanted to reach underreached folks. And, sorry, I was trying to get myself in the right place. So we sent a survey out, and we got good feedback on the survey. We did that in April, and so we were pleased to see a lot of, compliments, and I have them up there. I don't need to read them all, but yeah, a lot of people had good feedback for us. I feel like this is sort of my hypothesis going into it. I feel like the people that know about CPAC, know how to access it, and are engaged and use it when they need to or when they want to. So I feel like once we get them engaged, I think we have a nice community. I think we do have a good core of folks that either come a lot or just I know that they're kind of keeping an eye on things. And so, yeah, lots of lovely compliments here. Yeah, good. Okay, so then another question we were wondering is, do you think people who need CPAC know what it is and how to access its resources? And again, I hypothesized that we would get a lot of no's, and we did get a lot of no's. So, people said things like, I just didn't know about it. I just found out about it, or I would have looked into it. I would have accessed it had I known. And, it's disappointing because we work so hard. And it's disappointing because I know Jen and Allison work really hard. And I know that, I feel like we have done all that we can do. You know, I think that it's on every IEP, it's in every email signature from Jen and Allison. But if you know anything about being a parent of kids with special needs, like, it's crazy. My husband said, when he was dropping me off, he said, you ooze authenticity. Like, you're coming in late, you just showered, you haven't eaten all day. Like, you're wearing an awareness t-shirt, like, you know, and we need more, you know, we need more. We need that personal invitation. And, you know, it's growing. I mean, just recently I had, actually, at the end of the year, I had at least, you know, a few people that they're my friends. You know, they're people that know. They see me all the time. I'm always talking about CPAC. They've never talked to me about it before. But, you know, at the end of the year, like, a couple people, hey, can you help me with this? Or, hey, can you talk to me about this? And, like, I think we're really good people to talk to. I think that we, you know, all the board members, and I think the core of people that are involved with CPAC a lot, like, we're all about partnering with teachers, following the chain, asking questions, you know, knowing your rights, going in there feeling like you're a key member. And, you know, Tom recently said that, like, you go into the room as a parent and if a school committee member is saying this, if you go in the room and parents can feel outnumbered by what's in the room. And there's this song my sister used to play by this old band, Erasure. It doesn't have to be like that. And I told my son that I was going to sing at the meeting, and he said, please don't, but I'm doing it. Because that's all it doesn't have to be like that. And I think, I don't know, we've got a very good active CPAC here. We've got awesome leadership and student services. It doesn't need to be like that. And I said to my husband, like, do you feel that way? Because I don't feel that way when I go in meetings. And he's like, absolutely. He said, if you didn't, you know, I'm a teacher. If you weren't a teacher, like, I absolutely would feel that way. But and we did have a meeting this recently for one of my students that one of my kids that we're not usually doing IEP meetings for. And, you know, it did feel different. It did feel different going into that meeting, and it was a little bit different. But the more parents feel like they're key members and, like, really understand that key role that they have, like, it's not going to feel that way. And I don't think you guys want it to feel that way, and the teachers don't want it to feel that way, and the principals don't want it to feel that way. But it still does, you know, to a lot of parents. So we've got to do something about that. Someone just said at our social the other night to me, she's like, you know, I feel like there are a couple parents, and it's a program, one of the programs, and I feel like if I said to them mention the name of the program, they wouldn't know what it means, you know, and, like, that's got to change, you know. And again, it's not on the parents, because we're just really busy and, like, really overwhelmed, you know. So it's on all of us. Like, it's definitely on CPAC, it's definitely on student services for us to continue doing what we're doing, but we need to widen that a little bit more. Okay, so. Okay, and then we asked them what CPAC programs you would like to see in 2023, 2024, next year. So there are lots of topics there. We're working through them. We're working with student services on them. I don't want to read them all. You know, we're not going to be able to do all of them, but we're definitely taking those things into consideration and letting it shape what we try to provide. And again, we've gotten awesome support from student services on that, and we're super grateful for that. Okay, let's see, what's next? Okay, so our mission. So first, to promote a network of parents of children with special needs and provide a forum to share information. So we have done lots and lots to do this. We are enjoying the freedom of not having to follow whatever that Robert's Rule. I don't even know if that's what it's called, but it's lovely to not have to do that anymore. In the days of the little engine that could Sarah, you know, she had to do that, but we don't have to do that anymore. So we can have open conversation. The board can converse and try to figure things out. And then when we when we came up to some questions that we really couldn't answer, like figuring out on our own, like, we just called another business meeting, an open meeting, and, like, put out the survey, and, you know, we have the freedom to do that. And I think we use it well. Like, we're supposed to it's best practice to try to make things open, and we're still doing that, but also balancing. Another survey we had recently, a lot of people don't want to come to a business meeting in order to also see a speaker. So trying to balance, like, getting the business done, but also engaging parents in a way that everybody can kind of handle. We're experimenting with the format, trying to figure out what works, in-person, hybrid, virtual, recording when possible. We got feedback from parents that not everybody can do an evening at 7 p.m. Well, we can, because I work during the day, you know, and now we have, you know, other board members, you know, that also have conflicts during the day, so it's difficult sometimes to provide a variety of meeting times, but, you know, we're doing the best we can, and the recording has been really helpful. And again, student services and tech, IT, they've been very helpful providing that to parents. So just getting as much as we can out there. And also having the website is amazing. So now we have the website where we can store all of the awesome things that we can collect. So we have this archive that we can give parents. We'll talk more about it. Yeah, experimenting with communication methods, like too much information, less information, you know, whatever. We're doing all these different things to try to reach lots of people. Like I said, we had the survey, especially to get those underreached groups. In 2020, when I presented, I mentioned that, you know, I feel like a lot of the people that I knew from CPAC had like really distinct, significant kids with distinct, significant disabilities. And you know, I got to know the special ed world because of my child who has a very rare syndrome that has a lot of complex needs. But I use my knowledge for my kids that you wouldn't know. You know, you wouldn't know what they have going on. And I said, you know, I go out and I wear my Williams syndrome shirts, but I don't wear ADHD t-shirts. You know, like I want to reach those people because my Williams syndrome connections, that has helped me understand the value of having a network and being tapped in and like having other people with you. But if you don't have that kind of a network, you maybe don't realize how important that is. And it can be isolating, and you can feel like you're the only one, and you don't necessarily always want to be putting it out there as much. So I thought about that night, and I said, why don't I have ADHD t-shirts? So I bought ADHD t-shirts, and I have my Embracing Neurodiversity t-shirt, so I am a little bit wider on that. But we've been trying to reach, you know, everybody, so the people with invisible disabilities, multi-language learners, Boston resident families, out-of-district families. So we've been really trying to reach those folks that aren't tapped in the way we think that they should be, because they would benefit. We worked, didn't present, but we were at the new resident open house to share about CPAC. We've distributed flyers at other events, and we've had social opportunities just to connect more parents, because the more parents are connected, the more they can, you know, network amongst themselves and with the board, but also just with themselves. So lots of activities. Popsicles on the playgrounds, summer patio socials, family kickball. We did the REF tree, so that was good like publicity, but also we had a craft night to decorate for it. Intentional connecting with Friends of Metco, and which is awesome because, you know, that intentional connection from Friends of Metco and CPAC, you know, now we have an awesome new board member who's a Boston resident mom, and so that's going to help us, you know, bridge that, which is fantastic. And then we have tried to have post-meeting informal conversation just to allow parents the time to chat. Because of our different formats, that doesn't always work out, but it is something we will do when possible. We had our movie night, so it was informative, but there was a social element too, and then we just had our end-of-year social on Tuesday, which was well-attended and lots of fun. Good. All right, so another part of our mission is to advise the Director of Student Services, the school committee, you all, and the superintendent on special education programs, policies, and parent and teacher training needs. I'm still going to do this. Okay, so we meet regularly with Jen and Allison. In those meetings, you know, we can communicate parent concerns. They can let us know things. They frequently, if some news is coming out, like for example, when the team chairs were changing, you know, they reached out and said, we'd like to talk to you, you know, before they sent it out to everyone so we could have the heads up, which was great. Did a lot of work with them during the program reviews and the tiered focused monitoring review process. They came to our meeting in the fall. They got lots of great feedback. Well, they got lots of, you know, feedback from parents, questions, some great, you know, whatever, that's not the point. Feedback, questions, and then I know when they presented to you all, they were able to use that feedback and it informed their presentation for you, which was awesome. And then now they have we have, you know, a small group of parents that are meeting with them regularly to hear updates, and that was, you know, a suggestion from parents, like, is there a way that CPAC can kind of keep abreast of all the implementation of the, you know, suggestions of the review, and so they were very willing, as they always are, to honor that, and so we have, again, like not, I guess you go, right? So Eunice goes, but it's not just the board members. I guess we're trying to, you know, sometimes people say CPAC and they think it's just the 4 board members, but that's not what it is. It's like all the parents. So it's great to be engaging some of these general council members more. So we have some, Eunice goes to those meetings, but other parents do too. So we utilize the open line of communication that we enjoy with the administrators, and we have very strong relationships with them, and we're super grateful for it. Just last week, I attended a listening session that a bunch of CPAC, like across the state, representatives, they had with district administrators from across the state, and it was just a listening session for CPACs to be able to express, it was about family engagement, and it was for CPAC reps to just communicate what they want to see for family engagement from districts. And Jen attended, and the point of it was for the administrators not to speak, just to listen. And, you know, we're in a really great spot. Like, there are plenty of districts that, you know, are not happy, can't even get their information in newsletters. And people have said that to me recently, like, oh, you don't know what it's like, you know, however many years ago, we couldn't even get like a line in a newsletter, you know? We're so not in that spot, you know, and multiple times during that call, I was like, oh, actually, you know, in Reading, we're able to, you know, do this, or, oh, yeah, we had that problem in Reading, and like, our director of student services called together this like whole big meeting of all these people in town to try to fix the problem, and this was about, you know, for recreational opportunities. So we're in like an amazing spot, you know, and I think my goal tonight, or like my personal goal, I think Eunice is, and the board is on this, but like, let's capitalize on it, you know, like we've got great leaders, we've got a really engaged CPAC, like we really want to capitalize on this. So we're supposed to be advising on policies. So last year, that was sort of the question I was supposed to make sure I focused on. And I didn't know how to answer that question at all. Like, how does CPAC advise on the policies? Like, I don't know. Like, we have these meetings. I don't know. You know, we have a liaison who comes to our meetings. We probably could be involved more. And I kind of was racking my brain over the spring and the summer and the fall, and I said to Jen, is there like some binder of policies I'm supposed to be reading? Like, I don't know how this, I don't want to be reading. She's like, you probably don't want to be reading a binder of policies. But I'm gonna put that back on you, because like, we're here and we're ready to advise. I don't know what that even looks like, but we are here and we should be advising. And I think you mentioned last year that there aren't that many policies, you know, hi. Do you have a question?
Just a point for you. We have coming up.
Yes.
The student discipline policy for students with special education related classification. So
you would be reaching
we
out
can
to
reach
us.
out to you and
Right.
should reach out to you as that is one of the 4 student discipline policies we'll be going through.
Yes.
Probably in the next, if I ever get my rear end gear, the next
Yes.
month or so. So if you're around in July or August, we'll be touching
And it won't
base.
necessarily be, you know, the board members too. Like a lot of times this year, you know, we had, for example, the RISE director search committee. You know, I was like, are we going to have a rep on that? And I think, is it standard policy now that like there will be a CPAC rep on search committee? I'm going to say it should be. Like, it should be standard policy that if there's a search committee, there should be someone that CPAC is identifying, like, doesn't necessarily have to be a board member, but someone that is there actively to be thinking about the special ed community.
Right, that's a good point of feedback too. We have that on our RISE process, but it hasn't been standard in like all of our principal search processes, but I think that's certainly something we're hoping to, so.
Because when I emailed you and said, are we, you know, is there gonna be a spot? And like the response, it seemed to be like, oh, yes, like I think that was already in your mind. And again, I think we talked about this at the meeting last year, like it seems very relationship driven, which is awesome, but like literally every time Jen emails and I was like, hey, can we talk? I'm like, oh my gosh, she won the lottery, like she's leaving, or oh my God, she's finally like had enough of everything. She, you know, like every single time. So, yeah, and it's like awesome. It's great that we have these, you know, wonderful relationships. But yeah, like I feel like that should be standard policy.
Thank you.
Yep. Oh, and yeah, we advise on communication. So if like they communicate something and I'm like, oh, you know, or anybody, you know, any of us, like, oh, maybe this could be clearer, or, oh, could you give us the dates of that meeting that's coming up just so we can send an extra reminder, because parents of kids who have extra needs, we thrive on multiple reminders. So we like to help in that way as much as we can. Okay, then another part of our mission is to promote the communication and sharing of information between CPAC members and all sorts of organizations and groups, to encourage understanding, acceptance, and inclusion of students with special needs.
Okay.
Oh, and this is you, great.
Yeah. So one of our big accomplishments this year is we built a website for CPAC from scratch. A lot of hours went into that, a lot of work, and my husband, Sean Kenyon, also really helped us with that too, and so the school and Tom Malachewski and everybody else was very much on board and helping us through the process. We also revised our CPAC flyer this year. I gave you each one, so you can kind of get a look. We pretty much just wanted to highlight the important things and simplify the language on it so that it's, more accessible or to most.
I need to say something about the website. This was a huge undertaking, and it's phenomenal. If you haven't looked at this website, I was like, oh, do we really? She's been talking about this website forever, and I'm like, oh, it's fine. Like, what we have is fine. Oh my gosh, it surpassed my expectations. It blew me out of the water. It's so good, and literally everybody in Reading should be telling everybody in Reading about this website, because it is not just good for someone who already has a kid on an IEP. There's so much information. It's awesome in terms of building partnerships and like communicating with the schools and like perspective taking and asking questions. Like literally, this is what you want parents reading and thinking about before they go into meetings, and it's just so good. So you need to promote it more than you already have.
Especially the effective communication part. I think that would be very helpful for a lot of people to read that piece. I think it's a lot of good advice in how to get your points across during an IEP meeting or 504 meeting or whatever it is. But yeah, it really is packed with information, and we still want to expand on it. There's still areas, especially having done the survey, that we can see that people are asking questions about, and ultimately should probably be given an area on the website so that the information is more readily available to Reading residents. We continued our regular meetings this year. I think Maria mentioned that already. And then we also try to get the word out about what we're doing or what we're offering this year. We use this district and the school newsletters. We use Facebook. We use Instagram. We send flyers home. Student Services, I think, set the printer on for us overnight and.
We broke it twice. Fran's amazing, she got it
Fran is
working.
amazing, and she's been so supportive of us.
And the Student Services also helped us to put a statement in the district handbook. It's on Team Chair Communication. It's on the school website. We've had posts within the Reading Post and Reading Recap. The statement in the district handbook, and that's on the team chairs. It reads, be sure to visit the CPAC website for more information regarding the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. We collaborated with other CPACs, especially around basic rights trainings, because we can do 2 free per year, because part of our membership that the school's been paying for CPAC. And so we try to collaborate with other CPACs to try and see if we can get as many of the basic rights, presentations to our respective members. We worked a lot with the Division of Equity and Social Justice. We even did a presentation with them this year, and with community partners. We try to publicize any initiatives that from the school, from special education, any events. We put them in our newsletters, we put it on Facebook. We try to make sure that, we try to reach as many people as possible so that they know what is out there for them in Reading and the efforts that is being made. Maria's, one of her really good ideas last year was like to have point people, and we've had people step up from various schools. It was council members or parents from each school that communicate to the principal to make sure that our latest updates is in the school newsletters. And so they would report back to us to let us know if it was actually in the newsletters. You want to mention?
I was just going to say, we
Memorial
still
High
need
School?
one at Rise, and we need one at the high school still, but it's helpful to have them at the other
Yeah,
schools.
it is super helpful because we didn't have someone at the high school level.
Right.
And that's turned out that's a lot of things were missed there. So we do need someone who can look at the newsletters and actually confirm to us that the information is going out. So parents have been really great to do that. And then I think Maria already mentioned that we had a parent consult group for program reviews. We had a council member or parent that emailed and said that they don't want to have happen what happened in the past with these reviews, and the reviews are done, but it's not followed through on and so forth. So they wanted some kind of a meeting. And Jennifer Stiles was really fantastic. She helped us pull a group together. We sent out an email for anybody who wants to be part of this group. We open it up to anybody. We've met a couple times now with student services, kind of talk to these parents to let them know what's happening and what work has been done, and also to ask what we thought of the mission and vision statement. And, it's really been a great group to be part of. This is our new website. As you see, there's a lot of areas that we cover in the website. The survey we also did that you saw earlier was done before the website. So when people said they would like more information about IEPs versus 504s, or that information was not readily out there yet, especially with the, I guess, so we try to put all that information in one place, including what to do if you struggle and who do you turn to. So we did a whole area on that, on the dispute process, and letting people know that they should be reaching out to student services first. And because Jennifer and Dr. Stiles and Alison has been wonderful at trying to meet parents' needs and making, adjustments where they can for students. So it's before trying to involve more people, it's a good place to start from there. And then you saw our flyers, and we also provide informational workshops to parents, educators, students, and professionals. So let's see, we send out approximately 42 educational opportunities to our council members, including 7 that were sponsored by Reading CPAC. We had 7 Reading CPAC social events this year. We sent 5 articles that was aimed at parents, 14 support service promotions for families, and we promoted about 14 local and other adaptive recreation activities to families. Because as much as we would like to cover every topic that people are asking for, it's just not possible with the time constraints and, other constraints. So we try to let them know of other events held in different districts that they can join into, and hopefully there's specific topic that they're interested in. There's opportunities for them to hear from various speakers, so we try to bring it to the forefront to them and let them know what is available, what events are happening outside of our Reading CPAC. And we also, 5 new regulations and educational updates in partnership with the school. For example, the new IEP and as forms and so forth. So these are the events that we did this year. We had to postpone Lynn Lyons due to, she couldn't show up. She had an accident, and but she'll be coming back, I believe, in September?
Yes.
We've booked her for September now, so it's great. We'll have, we have a great speaker already lined up for the start of the school year.
Things to say on that
Oh,
one.
yeah, absolutely.
First of all, just take this in. This is so much. This was an incredible amount of offerings
It
that
was a
we
lot of work.
sent to families this year. We had a lot of engagement. We had high attendance for a lot of them. So much support from student services on this. I mean, other board members would ask for things. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're asking for too much. No, like we got so much. So grateful for that. And what did I want to say? Oh yeah, and so in the spring, we had so much to plan, and I'm like, how are we going to promote all this? Because if we're going to do this, I want to do it. I want to promote it. I want to get people here. And one of the lovely things about this year too is that we wanted to reach out to everybody, because CPAC really is for everybody. Sure, people who have kids on IEPs or 504s are going to be like keenly, benefiting from it, but it's for so many. It's for all parents. We're all dealing with anxiety and whatever. So so I was nervous about promoting it all, and so I asked if we could have a flyer printed, distributed to all the elementary schools, and I was initially told no, and I liked the no, because we're trying to be a paperless district, and I like that. I like that we're trying to stick with, whatever we set our priorities to be, and then I liked the yes that I got later when I said, it's a lot, like, we need to promote all this, like, parents need multiple reminders, we need the thing on our fridge, we've got so many emails, like, this is a lot, we're trying to promote a lot here, and we got the yes, and I was really grateful for that.
Okay, I think this is so this is just a list of these, the workshops they did this year. We did,
Can I just say?
yeah,
something?
we can
So-
just, I'm
So
just gonna
transition
click
planning,
through
that was
them.
something that families had asked for in a previous survey. I forget, it was either last year or the year before. They wanted more in transitions, and I will say that this is an area of need. I think, student services knows this, I think you guys know this, like, this is an area of need. And so, one thing that CPAC could do is, instead of having understanding the IEP as our workshop, or evaluation and eligibility, we prioritize, let's get the transition planning workshop, even though that's only a limited number of students, right? Because it's ages 14 to 22. So, but we were trying to key into that, like I said, those under-reached groups, maybe
We also on the survey, we actually got that a lot. That was one of the things, like people saying, there's a lot of information out there for the younger people or the people
New
starting the
people, yeah.
process and so forth. But what about the people who's going to be graduating? They feel there's not enough information out there for them. So that's an area we do want to expand to on the website. Maybe put more, maybe get, speak about more to that in our meetings and so forth. So that is definitely an area of concern.
Yes. And then special needs planning, I think Eunice found this, we had this wonderful attorney, she allowed us to video it. Eunice spent all this time, like, making the video possible to share. It's beautiful. Share it widely. It's on our website. Nobody wants to sit down at 7 o'clock at night and think about, what if I die? What if I divorce my husband? We don't want to be thinking about that, but there are really specific needs when it comes to, if you have kids with special needs. It's a very valuable workshop, and it's there. She's amazing that she allowed us to share it out. Lucia Couquier is her name. Bullying, again, that was a workshop requested by parents. The Federation for Children with Special Needs offers it free. We were able to offer that. I got information from that I was able to use that week when I came in contact with a parent, and I was able to immediately tell them information. Again, super important information. Overcoming hurdles to disability inclusion in March. That was a really good night, and that was Sudeshna Chatterjee collaborated with us on hosting that at the library. We had an expert come in, a consultant, and it's all about, you know, how to just make everything more inclusive for folks with disabilities. It would have been nice to see more community leaders at that, and I know that, like, you know, our schools, you guys already had like a thing, you had some sort of a conference or something, so the date was just a bad date. But in general, I need more from, not just you guys, like I need more from all community leaders. Like when this sort of an opportunity comes, the optics isn't great when we don't see like a bunch of people coming to it. So again, it's just a date that passed, and like, that's, you know, it was a bad date and whatever. But I'm saying, like, when these opportunities come, like in Reading, we need to be intentionally seeking out ways to be, to do better, you know, for folks with disabilities. And I think that I think we're trying to do a lot. I think, but recently someone said something about, oh, everything civil rights is about, you know, either race or gender identity. And no, we just had a workshop. We just had a workshop in March about it. Like, no, that's not the case. But we need to just, I think, be more intentionally taking these opportunities. Yeah, the movie night in May was awesome. Anxious Nation was, you know, a tough film to watch, but an important one to watch, and it featured Lynn Lyons, which is a great tie-in to our speaker that we'll be having. And then Jen and Allison, they brought this one, The Milestones of Growing Up in the Digital Age, which was awesome, especially to begin the summer. And they were like, you can host it, okay. Like, more publicity for us, it was great. So thank you, it was super valuable. And we can share that with folks in the Reading Public Schools community, so we can't put it on our website, but if anybody's, it's a great topic to learn about, so we can share that like via email. Yeah, and I already talked about that listening session. Okay, sorry, wanted to jump in.
I think you can finish it.
Am I finishing it? Okay, so yeah, there's our, that's our mission, and then looking ahead, right? We're looking ahead? Mm-hmm. Okay, so, was I supposed to read that again? Okay, so we're working for the understanding of, respect for, and support of all children with special needs in the community. And are we looking forward?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're looking forward. All right, so what do we want to do looking forward? We want to do a lot of things. So we want to provide new social networking opportunities for parents and children. We want to expand our workshops that we're offering, even though we did so much this year. I don't know if we're gonna do as much as we did, but maybe we will, I don't know. So evaluation and eligibility, I think, is what we're looking to do in the fall. And then Lynn Lyons and Sarah Ward, we're definitely doing, those just so exciting. Like, these are, I cannot believe that we're bringing all these folks to Reading. These are really awesome people. So Lynn Lyons is, you know, anxiety, and then Sarah Ward, executive functioning, which is a huge area that parents have been asking for. We want to look at expanding the Friends of CPAC, which, you know, we sort of have right now, but kind of get people, Eunice has lots of ideas for that, of like engaging people, but not in a board member way. But a lot of people want to have like networking around like specific needs, either ages or programs or disabilities or whatever, and try to provide that kind of support so that people can share resources and just support one another. Explore fundraising. Eunice has lots of ideas about that. We've gotten lots of support from Susan. Thank you so much for all the support you've given. We're sad to see you go, but we wish you the best. But you've been a huge support to us this year. Expanding the website, it's amazing, but expanding it more. We are looking to have a meet and greet in the fall, I forget what month, October maybe. So during the day, and have like the team chairs and parents come together for a breakfast at central office, which is lovely. And then, expand our partnerships with community support groups. And then just continue our trusted partnerships that we have with student services and schools and school leaders. And I have just some other thoughts that I wanted to share. Okay. These aren't like as organized, but we talked about blind spots at the school committee meeting when we were in Boston. What's her name, Millie, I forget her last name, but the Metco director, she talked about blind spots, and I just thought that was the best metaphor, that like, yeah, maybe there's something that we could be doing differently or better, but there's no shame. She talked about like, there's no shame, right? And I wish I had led with that before I said, I think we need to, there are some things I think we could be doing better. And again, I think they're blind spots, and it's our job to kind of bring out those blind spots. So like, yeah, I think that there are some places where the disability community and people that are allies, maybe could be intentionally invited more, that's just a blind spot, and I invite everyone to kind of be aware of that and then move forward, and kind of have that in mind as we move forward. And, some of our blind spots in CPAC, some folks that we weren't reaching out to were Boston resident families, multilingual learners, out-of-district families. And I think we've been intentional about trying to engage those families. We have a point person who is herself a multilingual speaker, and so she uses the Talking Points app, and she communicates CPAC information out to multilingual families. We met with Karen Hall and we met with Curtis Martin to try to say like, what can we, like, we don't know, how do we have our theories of what we can do, but like, what can we do? What do you think we can do to engage these families? And we've done some of them. So we have Tiana is awesome. She's our multilingual point person. We have Zia now as a board member, and it's been great. And so, and just this week we were reached out by Metco to help provide like a more sensory-friendly experience for the Welcome Back Metco event in August. So it's wonderful. Were you going to say something?
Oh, for out of district, student services have been very helpful there. They've been sending out emails for us on our behalf to the out of district families. So we're trying to pull them in, and we have some more ideas for next year, but we'll present on that hopefully next year.
And so there's this metaphor in my mind that if you picture a wheel and the spokes of a wheel. So a special ed parent has this wheel and all these different spokes, like academics is one, but social relationships, medical needs, relationships with your partner, regular old discipline, classroom invitations, party invitations, anxiety needs, like whatever. There's so many things that we're in charge of, right, as a special needs parent. And like, we would love to give one of those spokes. If each of those things is a spoke, like we want to give that spoke to somebody. We want to take a spoke and not have to be in charge of it. It would be a dream. And I think a lot of parents maybe that's what they want, right? From like going to school, like here's the spoke, you take the academics and whew, now I don't have to do it. But like, and I know that it doesn't work that way. Like it doesn't work. And that wheel is not going to be strong if it's not both the schools and the parents together. And like, how do the parents know that when they want to give you the spoke, but like, who's going to tell them, no, you need to be in that spoke? Well, it's the school, right? It's like, it's the people at the eligibility meeting who are like, hey, we're in this together. And it has to be more than just, there's a line on the IEP that you're gonna fill out. And like, this is amazing, this is beautiful. And we had been giving these, and Jen, when she came in, she's the one who started these. When she came in, she said, would this be good to like hand it at meetings? Yeah, that would be amazing, It has to be more than just like the people that, it has to be even before the evaluation happens, because maybe the evaluation will end up in an IEP, maybe it won't. But regardless, like parents need to be kind of tapped into that CPAC website to get information and advice before, and they're more likely to understand or like not want to give that spoke to you if you're, and I say you, I mean all the schools, if it's so clear that you want them like in that spoke. Because then what happens is like, if they don't get that message, and then they feel like they've given you the spoke, but you can't do it because you need them, right? Like, you need the parents involved, and you need them to be walking into that meeting, knowing what a key member they are. Well, then you're frustrated, you know, then if you're a parent, you're like, but I gave you the spoke, like, I gave you the spoke, you're supposed to be in charge of this, why isn't this going well, why isn't this going right? Well, now I'm mad at you, because you have the spoke, and, you know, I'm not, and this isn't how it should be going. Well, everybody needs together, and then you're mad, and then if you get into a point where you're, you know, if you're paying money, right, and if you get to the point that you're like paying money for an advocate to help you, which is fine, but now you've got this, like, you know, transaction going on, and that's another spoke. Like, great, now on top of the financial spoke I already had, well, now I've got another financial spoke that I have to deal with. So we you know, it doesn't have to be like that. You got to back it up. And like, we've done what we can. I think Jen and Allison have done what they can. So I don't know what everyone else can do, but like, everyone else has to be thinking about, all right, what intentionally can we do? Because I think we've done that. Like, we were like, okay, what intentionally can we do to get multilingual learners? What intentionally can we do to get Boston resident families out of district, you know, whatever. Like, we all have to be doing that because that spoke needs to be very, very strong. And Tom always says, like, if you can let us know, like, what is good, like, what's happening that's good, or what is helpful, like, if you can tell us that. So, some things that have been, like, super helpful, and these were just sort of in my mind today that I kind of wrote down. First of all, the website support that we got was amazing, so, supporting us on the website, saying yes to the paper flyers, that was, you know, that was amazing. We're not gonna ask all the time for that, but, like, when we do, it's great. So, Wood End. So I said to Tom when they were looking for a principal, I said, I really think that if you get the SAIL program right, if you get like a leader that's gonna like help the SAIL, like everything else is gonna fall into place. I feel like if you get the special ed piece right, everything else is gonna be good too, you know, and everything else is gonna work. And I have to say, you know, the feedback we're getting from Wood End is very, very good, you know, from the SAIL families, but also from just in general. So I don't know, I would look at that. My advice is to look at that, like what has happened over the past year at Wood End, and like what good things can we take from that? Maybe reach out to parents and ask them. And then we asked if we could meet with principals at the beginning of the year and team chairs at the beginning of the year, because I want them to see like my gray hair, I want them to see my wrinkles, I want them to know that we're not just like a bulk email, we're not a PTO, we're not a booster club, we're not some like, I don't know, mass thing, like we're the representatives of the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. We are not mandated to do this, but you are mandated to have an active CPAC. It is one of like the only legislatively mandated parent groups that I can think of. And you have a very strong one, and you have an active one, and you have one that has momentum and consistency, and we have a strong partnership with Student Services. This is unique. And like, we could be a model. People could be like, oh, what does Reading do? They already are doing that, you know, like the tiered focus monitoring folks, you know, they're already sending districts there. Jen reached out to us recently about a district who's having a hard time getting a CPAC going. Like, I feel like we're getting there, and we should be there. So yeah, we need to really capitalize on this. And so like I appreciated that they were receptive to us coming and talking to the principals, because, you know, that personal connection, just like the point people, you know, like having, like, if an email comes from CPAC, and you don't really know what it is, but if an email comes from, you know, Eunice Kenyon, who's a parent, you know, you just are definitely going to notice those emails. A couple good stories recently. So I had a friend, like I said, you know, some of these are just friends, but a friend reached out and she said, oh, like, I'm having this issue, and like, what can we do? And like, you know, I walked her through what I would do and the chain of command and the questions to ask, and she had documented a lot of things, and she had like excellent meetings, you know, and like, it went really, really well. And she's going to be more engaged in CPAC. A new parent reached out to us recently and had an issue with something at a meeting, and it was disappointing. And I said, how did you even know to reach out to us? And she said that the early intervention folks told, like, that's what we need. You know, we need the early intervention folks to be telling, get involved with CPAC. We need the team chairs, we need the principals, we need everybody, like, get involved with CPAC, or at least, you know, get on their mailing list, check out their website. And we brought that concern to Jen. We happened to have a meeting with her that day, and like immediately she said, you know, it's what a parent wants to hear, like, oh, yeah, that's hard, you know, oh, I'm sorry, that's not what we want our message to be. And like, we want to partner with you. You're always gonna hear that from Jen. Like, this is, you know, we want to partner with you. We want, that's not the feeling that we want parents to have, you know? And she immediately offered to, you know, meet with this parent, and that's great. You know, that kind of stuff is so good. Recently, we were reached out to by, I don't know, Sudeshna reached out to us. There's some sort of health needs assessment happening in Reading or something about health needs in Reading. And they reached out to us, could we participate in this forum that's going to be happening in July? I will not be the one doing it because I can't figure out what it is, but we will have a you know, Lindsay's going to do that. So Lindsay will be, but that's awesome. Like the fact that, and like two separate people, Mary Juliana and Sudeshna, like both reached out to us. Like that's what we should be doing, you know, like, so more of that is great. And it doesn't mean that like we're going to get exhausted doing it all. Like we've got a wide field of folks, and we're going to be able to partner, and isn't that going to be great for families to be like, oh wow, like people really do want to hear from the disability, you know, community, and that's great, like this is good. Oh, and then we offered an idea for a speaker we wanted to see. Well, the next thing you know, we're having a meeting with Jen and Sarah, and they're like, tell us about what you think parents of kids with, you know, disabilities, what message do you want teachers to have, or, you know, what are the ideas? It was beautiful. I was like, oh, so thank you. You know, it was beautiful to be able to share and to be asked, you know, and to feel like it mattered. And she articulated it back to me so much better than I was saying it. So that was beautiful. It was, you know, I know you can't be thinking about, I know you have other things to do, but like special ed kids, they're every kid, you know, they fall into that general population too. And I've said this, you know, I said it to Jen, and I said to Tom, like, I love the new slogan, all means all, every child, every day. And that's the student services slogan, which is amazing. But also like, oh, shouldn't that be like the Reading Public Schools slogan, right? All means all, every child, every day. And don't take it from student services. I love it. They get to keep it. But that mentality should be at the foundation of what we do. And again, I think if you get special ed right, you're going to get everything else right. And we are in a place to really get special ed right, but you can't do it without the parents really super invited to that table. So we need to capitalize on it. We have engaged leaders, we have approachable leaders, we have engaged from the school. And then we also have engaged CPAC leaders. We have active CPAC leaders who think outside the box, take their role seriously. We're passionate. We need to promote it. People have notions of what that aren't necessarily true anymore. So, you know, I hear people say things like, oh, you need to get an advocate right away, or oh, you're outnumbered, or oh, you know, working with district leaders, and I don't know, maybe even CPAC, maybe they don't say it to me, but that it gets you nowhere. I don't think any of that's true anymore, but I think there's maybe a long history in Reading where that was true. But it doesn't have to be that way anymore. You know, we have a lot of people on our mailing list, but I don't even think it's half of what the special ed family list is. So I want everyone tapped in. I said at Special Olympics to the folks, Tara Hurley was so nice to let me have a minute. And I said, you know, I want to know every single one of you next year. There were so many people there I didn't know, you know. I said, you know, get involved with CPAC. I want to know everybody next year. And again, yeah, just, you know, we're not mandated to do this, but CPAC is mandated. So let's capitalize on what we have.
Yeah, we definitely have very good momentum, I feel. We really are a strong team. We hear nightmare stories from other CPACs, and so I think we can really build a strong foundation with everybody's help and set CPAC on a good path.
Yeah, I'll just say, I mean, you can definitely feel the momentum, and, you know, Marie, I think your point's well taken, that you're not mandated to do it, so I know we're all extremely appreciative of the time that you all invest in this role on the board, and all your council members as well. Any questions or comments?
If I can just say, like, it enriches our lives, like our lives as parents of kids with special needs. I think it's easier and better because of our involvement with CPAC, and it like fuels us, you know, like it doesn't burn us out, but it gets very discouraging when like I realize that something hasn't been you know, in a newsletter or whatever. Like, when I realized that I put the effort into something and like the publicity, because of, you know, a situation outside my control, like the support of the publicity is not there. And again, it's not, I mean, mostly we have like awesome, excellent support. I think we can build on it, but I don't want to have those moments of feeling like, like, we did all that and nobody knew about it, you know? Which maybe happened more a couple years ago. Actually, one of our board members said that she joined. I won't say if it's a current board member or a past one, so you can't figure out who it is. But someone said that they joined because they were like, oh, I didn't even know what CPAC was. I'm like, well, and finally, after a while, I'm like, well, did you ever read the newsletters, you know? Like, because I'm thinking like, well, that's been in every single newsletter. And it wasn't in every single newsletter. It's a whole school, you know? So that kind of stuff, you know? That's not that big, that's not a big ask. I know I like am putting big asks out there. That's not a big ask, you know? The intentional thing or like reflecting on like, oh, what can I do better? Like, that's a big ask. And I know that everybody is working their darndest, you know, and everyone is putting themselves out there all the time. So I understand that, and I'm not, you know, discounting that at all. But I am saying like, oh, you know, let's just keep it in mind as like we move forward next year.
Anybody else? Great. Well, thank you both very much. We really appreciate it.
No questions?
Thank you. You covered a ton.
Covered a ton, yeah.
We did a lot this year.
It wasn't on.
We would have wrapped with what else, you know, what else do you need from us? How can we support you? And you hit it
Because I
like,
never ask. I know, and I want you to remember, I feel like I never come in and ask for anything, but this year I feel like we're ready to ask. We've done enough to be able to ask now. So thank you for your continued support. Thank you, Jen and Allison, for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right. Let's move to the year-end personnel update. And Ms. Roach, I think we've got your presentation there somewhere as well. Take it away.
Awesome, thank you. I'm excited to be back and share with you just some of the work that we're doing in HR. So I have a couple key areas that I'm going to go over. I have hiring, recruitment, departures, initiatives, and recognition. So in terms of hiring, we have right now one leadership search, and that's the Killam Elementary School principal. I just wanted to give you a snapshot of just some of the movement we have had. So positions filled for 23-24 school year. You can see we do have 29 teachers that we've hired. 7 of those teachers are related to one-year leaves of absences. So we do already have that moving. So also administrators non-union, that's 13. Food services, we are at just two openings across the district, with 2 hires across the district for next year already, and paraeducators 3, and internal transfers is 51. And with those internal transfers, that can be anywhere from, you know, we've had about 10 paras that are moving into the teachers union. It could be someone that's moving within a different program. It's just a myriad of things. Someone in, say, food services that's moving from a worker position to a manager position. So that internal bucket, we can see we are having a lot of internal movement, which I think is great progress when we think about development throughout the district. We still have a number of positions we're hiring for. So we have 15 teachers. This includes 1 nurse. I have to say there is a typo there. I have a plural with my positions on nurse I was really upset about before I came up. But the team pointed out to me, we had, this afternoon, we actually had an accepted offer. It used to be 2 nurses. So I had to make the update, but I forgot to take the S out. For administrators, non-union positions, we have 2 open right now. That is the Killam principal as well as the BCBA. 1 secretary, 14 paraeducators, and 2 positions in facilities, which are both, we have 1 at the high school and 1 at Parker that we're trying to fill. So we have 34 open positions total. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to give you a snapshot of our year-to-year when we look at recruitment and terminations, and then what we're going to do is later on in the presentation, I'm getting to some exit survey data. So with this is our year-to-year recruitment. This really is points of conversation. It's a health check for us where you can see where we've made some progress. You'll see that there are some, so the one I'm looking at is facilities, the 117 days. That was a tough to fill position that we had open for 200 days. So the data's gonna be skewed based on where we have some really hard to fill roles. But what I think is really positive is when, like, you look at the cafeteria, last year, our time to fill was 72 days. We spent a lot of time, we did the Joint Labor Committee to work with the union on increasing wages in that area, and now we're seeing that number's dropped from 72 to 18. And I think that's a huge accomplishment, and congrats also to Director Franzetti, who has been really, have that eye on recruitment and getting the kitchens. They are, if you go down there, they are bustling. I was in the Parker one last week, and one of the cafeteria workers had said to me, I really want to try this new thing next year, and I know Catherine's going to let me do it. So it's a lot of great things going on in there. So I think that is really positive. You'll see paraeducators, that has steadily inclined, and we're seeing that in our open positions. We are having a really hard time filling those paraeducator positions. So this is just sort of a snapshot of what we're looking at in terms of recruitment. I'm going to pause there just to see if anyone has any questions before I move on. All right, so I will head to departures year to year. So in terms of departures, you will see that, so one of the things we did here is we wanted to leave out our RTA and RTA retirements. So the RTA bucket, that is going to be anyone that voluntarily that exits the organization. Those are non-renewals, relocations. There are a major amount of people in that bucket. We wanted to really pull that out from the retirements, because as you can see, the retirements are going up, whereas as the RTA exits are going down. So I felt like that was a really important distinction that we made in this area. This is just going to be a snapshot because we're not going to accurately know what these numbers look like for the end of the school year until we get into August. Because there's still people, just like we're still hiring, there are many districts that are still hiring. So this may fluctuate a little bit. And you can see that we have stayed pretty consistent in most areas. With our exits for paraeducators, you can see that we are going down in that area, which I think is really positive, that we are holding on to our more tenured staff, as well as what I referred to with the internal movement. We are also moving staff into different areas of the organization. We've had many paras that have started teaching roles within the district, and that wouldn't be captured here because they're not exiting Reading. So now I'm going to take you just into some of our HR initiatives for this year. One of the things that we really are trying to do in HR is around our proactivity and making sure that people know that we have information, we have resources, and there's things that can help them in their employment journey here at RPS. So you'll see this is our recent HR Happenings newsletter that just went out, I think, end of May. It was sometime in May, where if anyone has an updated license, what's the process for that? What do I do if I have a name change, an address change? These are really from popular questions that we get. There are frequently asked questions, and we want to make sure people have the right information. The second page of this is who do I contact if I have a question about whether it's payroll, retirement, a leave of absence. We want to make sure people know that they have resources and who they can contact if they have a question about any particular one. Another one that we found was in the RTA contract around competency and lane changes. There was not a lot of clarity. The language currently reads that you have to submit documentation to administration, but it doesn't tell people how to do that, when to do that. So what we did is we created a competency and a lane change form. We sent that out to RTA so they know, okay, I have to do this form, these are the documents I need, this is exactly who I'm giving it to, which is the HR office, and when I have to give it by. So we really wanted to get this information into the hands of everyone so they know what they're doing when it comes to these different processes that can be hard to navigate if they're not sure who to contact. I'm going to pause there. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Okay. Our awards night, as you know, last school committee meeting, we did have our awards night. We expanded the staff recognition this year. Last year, I think we had 5 awards. This year, we expanded that into 17 awards. We have a picture from the event there on the right. I think it was very well attended. We've gotten great feedback from the night, so I'm really hoping that we can expand it even further and get more of a fan base next year for it. And I've heard a lot of talk about us being able to remove it from the school committee meeting and have it be a standalone event, which I think is a huge just progress that we've made in the last couple of years.
So I just want to point that as we think about this in the future too, I think one of the pieces with possibly pulling out a school committee, the other piece of feedback we got is also expanding to some excellence in students as well too. So there's a couple of districts who do like a night of excellence or academic excellence or things like that. So our team is thinking about just what this would look like as we recognize staff. Are there opportunities here to recognize students as well?
So I'm so happy with the way this has evolved and how we've been able to grow it, and then to be able to expand it next year, I think it's huge. And it's a lot of well-deserved recognition for our hardworking staff. And one of the other things, I've heard from the committee is you guys want to have an exit survey, have exit data. So that is something we started last year, and that we've been tracking this year. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share with you just some high-level patterns and themes that I've been seeing. So I do wanna protect the anonymity, can't say that word, of the process. So I am not going to really drill down on the data, but I'm gonna give a lot of good stuff, and we are able to drill down specific areas, which I'll walk through. So for the 22-23 school year, we did send the survey out to 84 departing staff members that were either resigned or retired through June 30th. Our response rate was around 30%. We received 25 responses. So some of the topics that we cover, we ask position because we want to know what unit they're in, so we know when they're providing feedback, what specifically we can target when we're looking at that feedback and what we need to think about. Their tenure in the district, so we know whether they're an early educator or they're further along in their career journey here, because we want to make sure that we're appealing as an employer to those early in their career as well as those who are later in their career. What is their reason for departure, so we can understand who's leaving from what group and why. Where are they going? Are they staying with us within the same industry that they're currently working? Are they retiring? Are they going to do something completely different? What was their overall experience? What they liked most about the job, district, relationships, suggestions for improvement. Also, the last question is, do they want to be contacted further for an in-person exit interview? We have had, so I have met with staff as well as Tom has met with staff. We've actually met with quite a few staff members who have been exiting to get some more helpful data that we can use as we think about exits and the employee experience here. So of the 25 responses we got for this year, this just shows you a breakdown of just some of the stuff that we're looking at, what their tenure looks like. So you'll see the 1 year, 1 to 3, and so you'll see those bands too. Those retirements also fall within that 10+ band, but if we have someone that's in that 10+ band who's not a retirement, that's, say, for an instance, a survey we really want to pay attention to, right? Because if they're here 10+ years and then they're leaving, why are they leaving? Because they've spent a substantial amount of time in their career here. Departures for similar positions. So you'll see 37% are going into a similar or same field. We have a small sliver, that 21% that's going into different field, and that 42% who are retiring and have no new position or have no new position. This is based on the 25 responses, so we obviously know that this is just a sliver, and this is going to give us a snapshot into what's going on. And it hopefully leads us to some themes that will help us. We do have self-reported contributing factors to their departure. So the good thing about this is we can also look into, a lot of these questions have comment fields, so we can see particularly what comments they're leaving, we can see what unit they're in. So say, for instance, that lack of professional development, if that is a theme amongst our teachers, I know that I have to reach out to Dr. Hardy to discuss that feedback. So we are able to take this feedback, look at those themes, pull those big nuggets out, and have a conversation with the necessary stakeholders to make sure that we are, if it's delivering meaningful PD, or are we looking at compensation, what's that work-life balance look like? This will also help us as we enter into contract negotiations with all of our units, because we're gonna be able to see and get that data for why people are leaving. And those are some areas that we can address as we think about the future. I'm gonna pause there. Yes.
This particular question, is it a multi-select? They can choose
It's a
multiple
multi-select.
reasons?
Yes. It is a multi-select. We felt like we would lose value if we made it a single select, because I find that there's so many, there's always a primary driver why someone leaves, but there's so many factors that go in to a person's departure. So we did make it multi-select. And so that is what I leave you with. We are going to continue to slice into this data throughout the summer, because we want to make sure that we have everything in there. We also will be updating this if we do have any departures up until this, that are going forward, to make sure we're capturing this data. And then we're going to look for themes year to year, right? We ran this survey last year, we ran it this year, and we are finding some similar themes, and we're going to be able to report out on those to you in the future. And I anticipate in my fall update, I'll be able to share more as we go through this data. So I am going to stop there if anyone has any questions.
Please.
These are voluntary?
Yes, these are only voluntary terms.
Okay.
This is not sent if it was not voluntary, or if it was, say, a case of a non-renewal.
Okay. And thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
For exit interviews, I want to clap.
So this is just amazing work that the HR department is doing. I couldn't do any of this work without Kristen Cohen and Andrew Gutchess. They are just instrumental in so much of the work that we've been pushing through HR. We've come to you guys with so many initiatives and so much great work, and they really are helping spearhead this and make sure that we're transforming the HR department into a more transformational, engaged HR department that, we're looking at that entire employee experience.
Go ahead, Chuck.
So you may have said it, I might have missed it, with the categories that, was that homegrown, or did you use the survey that?
We made this,
Okay.
yes. So we did this using a Google survey. So and I can share with you guys, I can send you the link to the survey so you can see it. And it was something that we played with, and that we came up with what we thought. We wanted to not have too many questions, because we want people to actually make sure that they are thoughtful about it and want to complete it. And at the same time, we want to make sure there was the things that we wanted to know about were captured. So I think we struck that balance, and I'm happy to send it so that you guys can take a look at it.
I'm sure the richness in this is in the verbatims and those deeper conversations you're able to
Yes.
have, which is great. There was one data point that I did find encouraging, though, the pie chart that showed the, like what they were leaving for, and it was like a similar role, similar field.
Yes.
And again, it's not a huge sample size, but it's that darker red quadrant that I sort of worry about the most. Like, those are the ones that were like maybe more within our control in some way,
Yes.
it's comp or it's culture or whatever it might be. So the fact that that's, a minority of the departures is encouraging in some way. That, it's discouraging that people might be leaving teaching altogether or what have you, obviously. But the fact that, folks are leaving for a similar role in a neighboring district, for instance, a minority of the time is, I think, encouraging in some way.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's an area that we can dive into, and we can see, okay, of that 37%, why is that 37% leaving? What can we do in especially that area?
Yeah.
To make sure when they're faced with that decision of, do I stay or do I go with this, because it could be something as a network, everyone has people in their networks that reach out and say, hey, this is great this is a great opportunity. We want that person to not be in that 37% and say, no, I'm going to stay in Reading. And we want that to be our brand.
Right. Chuck?
So maybe the sample size isn't big enough, but if you can go to the next, what would be interesting to know is, with all these different reasons, was if we could tie those to the, the number of years of teaching. So, I mean, when you bring up collective bargaining, it would be interesting to know are at a certain level, is most of the response about compensation?
Yes.
And so that would be interesting to know. About
I think it
maybe
would-
with only 25, it's not real good data, but
It's not a huge sample size, but I can say, when we think about compensation, I think none of this is going to be surprising when we look at what pockets they're in. There's areas that we know that we have work to do in, and we're committed to doing that work. And I think, if nothing else, all this exit survey does is just confirm what we already knew. When I read through the feedback, there's nothing that jumped out at me as new information.
thank you.
Great, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
That's
you.
great.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, so we've got, we're just a little behind schedule here, so why don't I suggest we take the district strategic plan out of order, because I think we've got two speakers in the crowd here tonight. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Can we take a motion to take E4 out of order, Carla?
I move to take E4 out of order.
Second.
Seconded by Tom. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, we'll take that out of order. Okay, so we will go then to the district strategic plan.
Okay, so want to go through a couple things, district strategic plan tonight. First thing, just want to first acknowledge that this is a lot of people in some way have touched this over the last several years. So if you look at the content and detail and what's in here, there's a lot that shouldn't be surprises. There's a lot here that have been discussed for many years. Two, there's a lot of people who have touched also not only the generation of ideas, but also just the development of this plan. You'll hear from a few folks in the room who have done that. You'll see some of the names listed in the document, but there's a lot of people, teachers, leaders, community members who have helped write some of the plan here as a group. Also like to just add that we noted this tonight in the agenda as a draft, so this is very much in draft form too. We think this will continue to change and be edited and modified over the years, but tonight we still view this as a draft. And then we'd just also like to thank all those who have given feedback. As you know, we sent this out, provided a feedback form for people to provide feedback. We did have some written feedback. We had a session where people could come and give any feedback. While we didn't have anyone come to that session, I have had some people reach out to schedule some meetings to chat through things in the plan. So I feel like we've gotten some good feedback over the past several weeks on this, which we all really appreciate. The other thing we'll do is we will put a link on our website to provide us with any feedback. It's still over the summer if people have feedback that they want to provide on our plan, as people have more time to look through this. So what we wanted to do tonight was just to orient the community on just what's in the document, and then spend the vast majority of our time not going through everything, but instead speaking about family community engagement, which is going to be pillar 4, strategic objective 4, given that this is something that may be sort of new to our community, that looks a little bit different from what's been done in the past, and really that we haven't spent as much time talking about as a district. So I think as we look at what's in 1, 2, and 3, those are conversations that we've been having a lot over as a community. So to start, what really undergirds the plan is what things that are our mission, our vision, our statement of equity, and a portrait of a graduate. And it's interesting, as we start to now have communications with families, if families are pushing back on what we're doing or why we're doing things, families are sometimes now citing, our portrait of a graduate and saying, well, this is what we've committed to, let's see that in practice. The same thing with our equity statement. So we are starting to see this lived out a little bit more in practice, which is encouraging for us. But all of that should the sentiment of each of those should live in what's in our actual strategic plan here. So you'll see that we have 4 major strategic objectives. 1, safe, equitable, supportive, equitable, and safe learning environments. 2, the coherent instructional systems. 3, strategic objectives. And 4, botched that.
3 school
2, coherent
operations.
instructional systems, 3, school operations, and 4, family and community engagement. And you'll see that there's the leads attached to each of those strategic objectives. That's just a list of the folks who helped us to kind of get this stuff off the ground and running. A perfect example on strategic objective 3, school ops. You'll notice that both the folks on there will be departing pretty soon. So we'll obviously be talking about a transition of what that will look like to pick up the work. But those are, we just wanted to kind of acknowledge the people who helped lead some of that team. But again, we recognize that's not all-inclusive or comprehensive. Also, so the community knows too, we have attached a school committee member, sort of representative to each one of those strategic objectives. We see their goal, sort of their work as being thought partners and support, not only sort of checking or having conversations around implementation and around progress, but also helping to be thought partners as we navigate how do we implement some of the things that are in here. We also do have 2 committee members who are working to make sure that to oversee sort of at large scale the plan in its entirety. So in addition to the 4 strategic objectives, you'll see that there is the strategic initiatives listed below within each bulleted, you know, for example, under safe, supportive, and equitable learning environments. 1.1, build a shared understanding about sense of belonging, identify common indicators to measure progress. In the community, if you click on that link, that will bring you to what we consider as sort of our action plan or our logic model of what this is going to look like in practice. We have tried to outline in as much detail as possible what those activities will look like. It seems a little bit vague to say we're going to build a shared understanding of what sense of belonging looks like. If I were a community member, if I were a teacher, I would want to know, so what does that actually look like? What are you actually doing? And I think that within those activities, we try to be as specific as possible what we're trying to do, and also try to be as specific in the short and long-term outcomes of what we're going to try to accomplish by living out those specific activities. So you will see that sort of similar format through all of our documentation. So we encourage those in the community to take a look at the document, play around on some of the strategic objectives and some of the strategic initiatives, and look and see, does this reflect the work that we've been discussing in the community? And are we being specific enough with exactly what we're going to do? And are we being specific enough with what we think success is going to look like? Our hope is that as we present to the school committee, as we present to the community in the future, that we don't have standalone, we're going to present on update on this, but instead we are presenting an update on 4.2, or we are giving an update on 2.1, so that everything that we're doing is aligned to our district strategic plan. In the fall, or starting the summer and fall work we are going to identify and highlight areas that are our major focus areas or priority areas within the plan for the upcoming year. There's a lot in here. It's a 3-year plan. We cannot bite it all off next year, so we want to be very clear and specific about what is in there that we're going to focus on. For example, the committee can expect to see a spot highlighted that's going to say math pathways, right? That is one area that we know that we need to make some progress. Our school principals will also be identifying things that tie to their school sites that they're going to pull out for their SIPs. So their SIP should tie exactly back to the language that's listed in the strategic plan. So, again, we'll present more on the content of everything that's in here in the fall. The window for feedback continues to be open over the summer. But in the meantime, we did want to be able to have Teresa and Barbara speak about 4. Is there any questions or concerns or feedback around just the structure of the plan, organization of the plan before we turn it over to strategic objective 4? Erin?
This is a nitpicky question, but why wouldn't it be 2023 to 2026?
Maybe because I counted my years wrong?
I'm just thinking, I guess I'm thinking of school years. Are we envisioning that this
5.
starts
Yeah.
in the fall of
Yeah,
23?
you're correct.
Good point.
You're correct.
Okay, okay.
And you're the only one who's mentioned that. That's, should have been an obvious catch. So we've looked at this a lot of times and didn't notice that. Thank you. We'll make that change.
It's not nitpicky. It's a good catch.
It's probably best if you just join us at the
That's
dais,
what I was
actually, yeah.
wondering.
Is there
Is it
any,
dais? I don't
any
know.
other?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. And I think, everyone has had the chance hopefully to meet Teresa and Barbara, but if not, they will certainly introduce themselves. Do you want me to? Great.
You don't want to do jazz hands?
We debated it and decided. Gives us more agency.
There you go.
And I just want to start, as they, to tee it up to them too, is I think we've had a lot of conversations predating all of us too around some of the work within 1, 2, 3. I think at most community meetings, we talk about the work that's in strategic objectives 1, 2, and 3. We have not had an intentional focus on family and community engagement. We do a lot of things around family and community engagement, but I don't think that's been a core part of our strategy for trying to improve our district. I'd like to thank both Teresa and Barbara, and also Alyssa Gallegos, who's not in the room right now, who's dropping her son off at college. But would like to thank them for their leadership in kicking off this work, as they'll talk about as a group that I think represents our community in a lot of different and unique and exciting ways. I am really optimistic about the impact that this work could have on our community, so I'll kick it over to them, but just immense gratitude for starting to lead this work for us.
What's happening? Yeah, well, that's the plan. I know, you saw a preview of it. So again, I'm Teresa Wiggins. For those of you who may not know me, I'm an educational consultant, parent coach, but also a parent here in town. And
I'm Barbara Best. I'm a doctoral student at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. I spent many years in Texas at the Children's Defense Fund and now live here in Massachusetts.
and it has been an honor to work with each other. Well, it's been an honor to work with you. I don't know if you would say the same.
It is.
But also with Alyssa Gallegos, Barrow's principal. And of course, our entire committee, who, it was just such a special group of people coming together and working together on this. So we are going to talk specifically about the 3 pillars that this family engagement, family and community engagement plan covers, but that's a little bit towards the end of the presentation. We thought it would be helpful to start with sort of an overview of what this work is about in a broad sense. Dr. Milichewski explained a little bit about, this is sort of a new look at family engagement. There is so much valuable, wonderful research out there over 40 plus years on effective family engagement. And there are a few principles that I want to talk about briefly. And the first is that it's really relational. This work is relational. So really kind of thinking about people before programs. And so really deep listening, intentionality, a lot of what CPAC was talking about tonight as well. So it's relational, and thereby then building trust. Trust is an absolute cornerstone of this work. Without trust, it's just not effective. And I think of trust as the hardest to build and the easiest to break. So we've got to be so intentional about listening and coming together. And that brings me to the third theme, which is it's collaborative. The family engagement that we do is co-built. It's co-built by schools, parents, and community. And students, so that it is truly a collaborative partnership. And that brings me to my next slide, which I know Mr. Robinson was excited about. So there's a cupcake. So I think I have everybody's attention now. It's starting to flashing cupcake. So the cupcake is a helpful metaphor for me to think about as I do this work, which I'm passionate about. Traditional, historic family engagement has been, let's build our schools as schools how we want them. Let's put the curriculum in place. Let's get all the teacher training. Let's do all of the social emotional curriculum. Let's build it all, wonderful programs, and let's bring parents in to show them what we've done. As if family engagement in that case is the icing on the cupcake. We have this cupcake now, the icing is to bring folks in and see it. This research-based effective family engagement is not the icing on the cupcake, it's the baking soda. It's the thing that makes the whole cupcake rise. So that all of the curriculum, the SEL, everything that is done is co-built, collaborative, relational, and everything rises together. So in this research-based model, what I've done is compiled I didn't compile it. I put together a slide of compiled research by the Flamboyant Foundation, which is based out of DC and Puerto Rico. And taking a look at all of the, much of the research that's been done, and what are some of the benefits of this effective family engagement model, true partnership. So it's increased student achievement, reduced absenteeism, improved student attitudes towards learning, better social skills, fewer behavior problems, reduced dropout rates and higher graduation rates, higher expectations from teachers, now thinking more about on the teacher side, improved student-teacher relationships, increased trust between teachers and parents, increased cultural and community awareness. And so you see all of these things together, it's pretty significant, the work that when we build partnerships collaboratively, people-based, relational, focused on trust, all of the benefits that we as an entire community can feel. And I'll turn it over to Barbara to talk about the committee work.
Yeah, one of the things that's striking about Reading is the level of collaboration here is amazing. It really is. I mean, the incredibly effective leadership team led by Dr. Tom Milichewski, the school board. We were delighted to have Aaron Gaffin serve on our committee from the school committee. And as CPAC leader said, the work is ripe. And so we had a 15-member planning committee, and this is a microcosm for the work that we want to do, leveraging all of these perspectives from school, family, communities. You can see some of the school leaders that were here. We had school administrators, school principals, the director of counseling from the high school, Aaron Gaffin there, with a systems level view as a school committee member, all together in the same room. Family, we had Boston resident family leaders, we had Reading resident family leaders. You can see there in brackets are members of the community leaders who have children in Reading Public Schools. And so it was just an incredible committee. Sudeshna Chatterjee was there, the Director for Equity and Social Justice for Reading, Lisa Egan, the head of the Chamber of Commerce, Erica McNamara. I mean, just an incredible group, 15 leaders coming together. And so it's a microcosm, again, of the work that we want to do. As Tom Wise said earlier, talking about the student leader, building those root systems, building those connections, all coming together to shape a path forward.
And also the Reading Public Library, too, had
Yes.
members on the board as well, and, or on the committee as well, which was so helpful. So talking more specifically about the three pillars that we addressed, co-built within the by the committee, the first is really focusing on family-school partnerships. So really looking at how the schools themselves and the families can co-build, collaborate, communicate. And this work isn't about reinventing the wheel necessarily. We do want to innovate. We do want to think outside of the box. But we also want to look at what is working well. What are our strengths, and to lift those and build those up. And then think about, well, what are some of the things we're doing that maybe we're not getting bang for the buck? And remove that from teacher workload and teachers' plates, because we want to be aware of that as well. And really be so intentional that I loved the metaphor that Maria mentioned about everybody holding the spoke, right? How can we do that most effectively? So the family school partnerships is one whole pillar.
And I just wanted to add one thing on that, which we're going to get to too, is what we hope to get to a point where a lot of those family-school relationships around teaching and learning, right? I think that's where we see really like a key driver improving academic outcomes is when those relationships happen or in the presence of conversations about academic outcomes, teaching and learning. So I know that's work you're going to do, but I just want to flag that for the committee too, because that's a key part of the research too, is that.
Right. Linked to learning.
Linked to learning,
That's
exactly, right.
Yes. And the other thing that we had to sort of walk a tightrope of building together with the committee a framework, but not building too much. Because again, the whole concept of this is that it's co-built. So we didn't want to say, okay, great, everybody's going to do exactly this and this and this. Well, no, this is a living, breathing process where the people in the room, the people at the table, we need to say, oh, are all the right people at the, are all voices at the table? And now how do we best do this moving forward? So the next piece is a children's cabinet. And this is the idea of a cabinet or group of people as a cross-section of the community that meet on a regular basis. That this might include school administration, school staff, school teachers, police department, town leadership, town hall, faith leaders in town, pediatricians, social services, senior center, parents, families, students, all coming together, CPAC, I mean, the list could go on, but coming together on a regular basis to, well, they need to determine exactly what it will be that will be the most pressing things, but to think about what can we do better? How can we become more efficient, systematic, on behalf of children? How can we promote equity? How can we lift all kids and family? Perfect example is the work that Jen Stice and Sarah Hardy talked about with the YMCA, helping with summer programming for MLL learners. So that kind of collaboration, leveraging resources and expertise at the table.
And then the third pillar of the strategic plan for family and community engagement is, it'll come up in a second, it's equitable family engagement with a focus on strengthening supports and connections for these particular groups, multilingual learners, Black and brown students, and economically disadvantaged students. And those groups are named by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, that the district has reporting requirements for those three groups. And so our plan aligns with those reporting requirements. And again, the idea that people support what they help to build. And so you'll see the plan is very systematic. We had these 15 members of the committee all weigh in with a path forward involving surveys, listening sessions, intentional outreach with directly impacted communities so that we know the best ways to reach parents in their communities. There's some great work happening that Department of Multilingual Learners, led by Karen Hall, is doing some great work with Brazilian newcomer families. So she organized a welcome event at Reading Public Library in the fall, bringing families together to learn from each other, at the library with library cards given to all the parents, and literacy materials, bilingual materials available, a translator available. And so that was really effective. So the idea of intentional outreach to reach people, all in service of improving student outcomes and building connections and supports that we all need to thrive. So that concludes our presentation. We welcome, unless you have anything to add,
Well,
Teresa.
just that star, the strengthening supports, is also embedded within the other pillars. So it is, because of the DESE reporting requirements and that we are, we need to take a closer and better look at those groups within Reading Public Schools, deserved its own pillar, and it's embedded in the work that we do. So,
Yes,
just wanted to mention
thank you.
that.
Yes, important point.
Tom, go
And
ahead.
then any questions?
Yes, first of all, thank you for the work. People don't always see the behind-the-scenes work that happens, so thank you for that. And as Dr. Milczewski mentioned, it's not something we've talked about a lot, but it is something we've talked about a lot at the same time. We haven't talked about it as a strategy, but we've talked about it in many different
Yes.
ways and places. We've talked about it from school council and involvement in that place. We've talked about in, changing schedules at the high school and how the families need to be involved. We've talked about so many different ways that
Right.
the school partnership happens. If you could go back a slide.
Sure.
Especially since you mentioned DESE's categorizations. We're missing a big group in that yellow square, that yellow star, and that group was here earlier tonight. We're missing our special education students. They need to belong in that star. They need to be particularly focused on and included as well, just as much, and that we heard it loud and clear. So if we're going to call out those groups, we should call out special education as well. And I know that's probably all part of the intent, but we need to make sure we intentionally do it, right? So I would encourage us to make that change as we go through this. And my question really is more on to the Children's Cabinet. And the administration team know I struggled with this one a little bit as well as I was going through it. I love the idea, but I see the outcomes more focused on community and less focused on school. And I want to understand why. If you look through all of them, there's nothing in there about academic outcomes. It's all about, community engagement and things along those lines. And maybe that's part of the 12-step model. And I just want to understand why we have a sub-goal that is not focused on school, but is focused on the greater Reading community. And whether that's appropriate for us to do as well in our scope and whatnot.
Yeah, thank you for those questions, Tom. I think that regarding the Children's Cabinet, I think what is so important for us to remember is that part of this model of effective family and community engagement is that it is all interconnected. And so this work of truly partnering with not just family, but community and schools does lift student outcomes to go back maybe to the Flamboyant Foundation. It does lift everything. Because if students, let's say, for example, that one of the maybe activities of the Children's Cabinet, maybe it would fall under Children's Cabinet, I don't know, but to create a shared town calendar so families can attend all of the things that are on their plate as best as possible, right? Of course, there's going to be conflicts because calendars are calendars, but to think about, well, how can I support my kid at their academic achievement night and my other kid at their arts celebration, right? That simple gesture lifts students and allows families to support their students. If we look at scheduling across the town, right, and think about how can we, this is one of my big issues, how can we protect children's sleep? If we protect children's sleep by thinking about town scheduling, behavior, academics, social, all of it improves, right? If we take a look at thinking about, okay, well, how can we partner with the YMCA for transportation or summer programming, that enriches those lives of those children and allows them to be more engaged, right? So it has all of this ripple effect. And maybe we didn't include enough in outcomes that points back to student outcomes. That's good feedback. But it is all interconnected because of basically the research showing that all of this, the baking soda, it lifts everything. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, and maybe it's not even just outcomes, it's kind of hard, I think. I think the way you're saying it, sorry, Sean, if I just finished with this, is, because you don't want to do the work because that's what the work is supposed to be. You want them to be involved in the work. They're supposed to be the baking soda. But to me, I think one of the missing parts of this section is, what is the expectation, really, of how this is going to tie back to academic achievement?
Right.
Or academic outcomes, school outcomes, not even just academics. Could be multiple different things, could be involvement in different schools. So how does this, as you think about this is built, it's like, I'm not going to tell you how you're going to get there, but here's I don't know, roadmap's a bad answer because that's telling you how to get there, but here's the destination, right?
Yeah.
Not how to get to the destination, but here's the destination and why this group is being formed to look at that. So
Right.
I think maybe that's kind of couching that should be added in maybe as something to think about.
Yeah.
I don't know how best to think about that, but I'm just trying to brainstorm on the spot here a little bit.
This is a great feedback and great questions, and I appreciate you really highlighting something that we talk about all the time, is that our work dovetails. It's not in silos, and I think, to your point, as we think about this council, pairing it with all the work we've done this past year and will continue to do on the focus groups with different student populations, I think that's going to give us some additional feedback. Those were some of the questions that when we worked with Joseph Longbottom and trained our staff in how to do focus groups with students, that's some of the feedback we got too. And I think if we're intentional about kind of naming that and where that plays into some of the feedback and changes we're making, I think that would be helpful. So I think there's a lot of places where it really connects.
Something I also think is interesting, I would want to leverage the cabinet to, is a lot of the work we're doing right now is just like with individual organizations or groups, but not with everyone at the table. Let me give an example. Something we're struggling with is a lot of our new multilingual learner families are struggling with access to consistent transportation to get to school, which is causing like major gaps in attendance for some of our students who really need to be in school during critical periods of language acquisition, right? So we've heard some wonderful ideas around this from the community recently. Carla had the idea, could we partner with maybe the senior center who has these buses that may be available like at that times of the day, at early or later? We're thinking about that. We have after-school partners and or programs who might have access to transportation, who might be able to say, I can get the kids after school and bring them to a program to support us. we had someone in the community side say, can we change the routes of one of the public transportation buses that maybe actually could go by a school that would then be able to have, so students could just hop on and get off. So we're starting to hear like all of these different ideas, and it's all just like me talking to this one person, Jen talking to this one person, someone else, and I just feel like sometimes like even these dilemmas of things that we're struggling with, to bring it out to a broader constituency might help us to struggle with them, and that's one example. And I think that tie for us would be the attendance tie, and I think then we know the attendance tie to the outcome tie. I think your feedback's spot on. I think it's something we need to be mindful as we build this out. And I just think there's some dilemmas of things that we're really struggling with that, quite frankly, we just in-house are struggling to figure out. I don't think the solutions can just sit with us, and we're not leveraging our community to support us in that work.
I also wanted to circle back to your other sort of question or comment about having special education in that STAR. And I guess I have a question for Sarah about the sort of DESE reporting on that, and just thinking about, I mean, I think I'm all for like including any and all. I was sort of under the impression that we did this because we were sort of underperforming in these groups.
We are.
We are,
and our special education population.
Okay, great. So we should put it in, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and they actually link back to those groups. So
That's
what
right.
they're looking at, are we over-identifying
Yes.
students of color? Are we over-identifying
Yes.
students who need MLL services? So it actually is all perfectly linked back together.
Great, perfect. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify, which, yeah.
Just one thought. Tom, I've been ruminating for the last 3 minutes on what you said. I understand I understand where it comes from, but the concern about, is the lens here too much focused on the community and not on school-based outcomes? One of the things, I was pulling up the portrait of the graduate because I thought there was something in here, and there is. One of the things in the portrait of the graduate is RPS graduates responsibly shape our world through collaboration with their community. And so that, to me, was like, that's a direct link, right? Like, that's something that we need to build that mindset consistently across the district that, those things don't just happen within the walls of the school. None of our objectives get achieved just by the people that are, sitting in this room or the people that work for them, right? So, it didn't feel like a big leap to me, I guess, and that's kind of where I was coming from with it.
Yeah, I guess where my pause, first of all, I agree with that. That's what it says, for sure. I think my pause was, it seems to be, and maybe it should be, and so that's what I'm trying to understand. It seems to be pulling people that we have no, for lack of a better way to say, control over, other than influence, and influence is important, right? But it seems to be pulling people in and expecting people to be involved that maybe don't want to be involved, or that, I mean, I guess that's what I'm struggling with. It's not the kids, the child part, the student part. It's everybody else that's in the bucket that's being included as part of this cabinet, that it's like, do we have authority, implicit or actual, to say these people are going to be involved in this thing? And maybe there'll be enough people to stick their hands in the air, because Reading's a phenomenal volunteer community, right? But I just want to be cautious that we don't set ourselves up for a goal that is going to fail because we don't have the community support overall to execute that.
I want to play, because you're spot on, right? Where a lot of, so if we look at models of children's cabinets across the country, the ones that I think are really getting momentum and steam are ones that are part of like the By All Means initiative, which is this group of, I think it's about a dozen communities where they say, generally more urban communities that say, like, we cannot, as just a school district, support our students in all the ways we need to without really the whole community wrapping our arms around the problems that we're trying to solve. And having a children's cabinet is like one of the key components of the By All Means work, which I think comes out of the Harvard redesign lab. So I agree with you, like the premise behind it is like schools can't do it all, right? Schools can't solve all these problems. It's gonna take other entities and organizations and stakeholders to help us to get to the outcomes that we need to and provide the supports that we need to. And I actually think, so while we may not be like similar demographically with maybe some of those other communities that have had more success with the Children's Cabinet, I think the reason why we'll work in a community like Reading is the reason you just described. we have these organizations that are like itching and eager to get in and support our district, and we don't have like a systems or structures besides just like one-off relationships to bring us together. So I think you're spot on, though, that's where it's coming from. And we don't have formal authority over them, but I think they really want to be at the table.
Anecdotally, I can share from our experience. I mean, months and months ago, Barbara and I sat at Cafe Nero brainstorming the sort of how would this kind of all work, and just pulling together the committee. And not only did each sort of, like, we had it all separated out into categories, like how can we, and we had some blind spots. We failed to invite people we should have. And not only did everybody, I think everybody either said yes, or I wish I could, but I have these certain times I can't come, is that okay? But also we had other groups saying, hey, us too, yeah, can we get there? It was inspiring to sit around the table and I don't know, Erin, you can attest to the energy in the room of I'm thinking about Lisa Egan from like the Chamber of Commerce and the library, and all these people saying, ooh, I have an idea for that, or ooh, what about this, or have we thought about this? And it was, you're right, we can't mandate like that we will have a representative from this and this and this, but the idea of the energy in this community, it truly was inspiring to sit around the table, and we all agreed, like, this hasn't happened before in a systematic way. I asked the room one time, has this happened before for any of you? Because it hasn't for me, and no. So this is, I think it's really exciting, and I think that we have a lot of eager participants in our community.
That's great. Anything else? All right, well, thank you both very much. Appreciate it. That's great.
Thank you.
All right, I think I'm getting signals that we want a quick bio break. So why don't we just we'll take a quick recess. We'll come back in, let's call it 5 minutes, 9:22. We are back in order. It's 9:24. So Dr. Milczewski, I think we'll go next. We'll just go back to our regular order. So do you want to fill us in on your recommendation regarding the Director of Finance and Operations?
Sure, so I'm going to be making a recommendation to move forward with the green light to go into negotiations with Dr. Derek Pinto as the next Director of Finance and Operations. I'd like to start by thanking the screening committee. If you look in the memo, it has a list of screening committee members, a pretty powerful team in there, for their work and helping to go through a series of interviews. It wasn't just a smooth process where we had one round of interviews and said was just as candidates came in. I think we interviewed them, and I think just appreciate their thought partnership and support. As we move forward, Derek, just like to share too that this was an interesting process in the sense that this is just a really difficult position to find someone really good for the role. I think we have a really high bar for just what's been set in our community. And also, there's not a lot of strong candidates out there in the market right now. So there's a lot of districts right now who are struggling to fill their Director of Finance and Operation type role. So with that, we are very fortunate to be able to move forward with Derek tonight, with Dr. Pinto. A couple of things stick out about Dr. Pinto. There's some things in the memo that describe his background in more detail, including his resume. But how he came up in the ranks as both a teacher, then a principal, and then a business official in California, and then also now managing a $90 million budget as a vice president of LaSalle University. We think that he has a lot of the leadership experience that align well to this role, both on the financial side, but the ops side. In his work at LaSalle, he does oversee all the similar departments he'd oversee here, including IT, food service, and facilities. And then as our team just met with Dr. Pinto and many of our school committees met with him, found him to be someone who is, exudes collaboration, someone who really is committed to continuing to, learn and grow himself as an educator, and someone who's really hardworking and dedicated to his craft. We think that, and he shared, it will be a little bit of a transition from the California context to the Massachusetts context, and also maybe now coming back from the private, sector into, or private college sector into, public K-12 sector, but we think he's going to make the transition really nicely. So I would seek the committee's approval for moving forward. I think he'll be a wonderful candidate. I think that he'll be jump in and ready to hit the ground running.
Great. Why don't we take a motion, and then we'll see if there's any discussion.
I move to approve the appointment of Dr. Derek Pinto as the Director of Finance and Operations, subject to successful contract negotiations.
Second.
Seconded by Tom. Is there any discussion? Nope. Okay, great. We'll go to the vote. All in favor? All opposed? 6-0. Excellent.
We'll keep the committee informed as we move forward with negotiations, but I expect that will be resolved quickly.
Just,
Go ahead, Chuck.
I would like to thank Dr. Milczewski just for remaining nimble in that process and putting forth a good outcome, so thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Okay, so we will now move to the learning and teaching year-end update and preview of the next year as well. So Dr. Hardy, I will hand it to you.
Thank you.
Oh, let me actually hand you the clicker as well.
I'll try to be concise because I don't think that there'll be anything in here that's a surprise. We've hopefully kept you well informed this year about the exciting work that's been underway, and so I don't think I'll need to go into the detail that I might have needed to if we hadn't done that. I also want to say that this is also, there's a lot to report because this is not just things that I've accomplished. This is really the work of a team, a larger learning and teaching team that consists of my two coordinators, Heather Leonard and Erin Burchell. We also were joined by Jess Callahan. She's our Director of Academic Achievement, so she was part of our team. This year we added Liam Liscalzo, who's our data specialist. And so that our team met weekly to ensure that we were getting forward progress on all the important projects in learning and teaching, to collaborate and to plan out next steps. And so this really is the result of that really high-functioning team. So tonight I'm going to give you an overview looking at sort of three buckets of work that the Learning and Teaching Department is responsible for: professional learning systems, our curriculum review process, and curriculum implementation. So this year our accomplishments fall into a couple of broad areas. First, I want to point out that we did spend time in our professional learning focus on really looking at our systems and ensuring that were as streamlined as possible. So a highlight there is we created a professional learning website for our staff as a spot that people can go to have information, and that is something that is dynamic and continuing to evolve. Another important thing that I want to highlight is we worked really hard to ensure that all of the professional learning that occurred this year could be tied back to our district improvement plan. As you've heard us talk about many times this year, we're focusing on fostering a sense of belonging for our students and identifying and increasing academic rigor. And so, for example, one of the changes we made this year is when we looked at our 2 in-service days, we ensured that there was professional development related to those strategic objectives, not only in the offerings that the district put forth, but working with our building principals, that they had time with their staff to bring forward those topics in ways that matched the needs of individual schools. So that was exciting work for us, and we received good feedback on that as well. Additionally, we worked with our building leaders to use even their staff meeting times, because those are really professional learning times that we leverage in order to support our staff. And we were working with our building principals this year as well to make sure that they were able to move forward the strategic objectives. Another area of focus for us for professional learning was around program implementation. So the various programs that you've heard us talk about quite a bit, ArcCore, IM, we spent a great deal of time and energy to ensure that the professional learning given to our teachers was high quality, top-notch, really supportive of what they needed, and also reacting to their experience. So we didn't just set up a plan at the beginning of the year and follow it all the way through. We were constantly checking in with how it was meeting their needs as they were using the programs with our students and being responsive and reactive to that. I think that one of the pieces on here too that I just want to highlight is we were able to start some of the professional learning in our middle school department meetings as well, and that was a new area for us. Erin Burchell and I spent a significant amount of time with our ELA department at the middle school, and that was really to support the work of the literacy leadership team. So that while the literacy leadership team was growing their practice, we were also working with the entire ELA department. So it's just one example of how we are trying to support future program implementation. Another area of focus for not just the learning and teaching team, but really our central office team this year was to provide really good professional learning for our administrators and leaders. So you've heard us talk about some of the supports we put in place through Salem State. One support I want to highlight for you, which I'm not sure if I've talked to you about, is one of the structures that myself and my team put in place was a meeting about twice a month with the elementary principals and then another separate meeting with the middle school principals. We put that structure in place because there were so many curriculum initiatives and work to be done that we felt we needed a dedicated time where we could really focus on that. As that got underway and we really worked with the principals to figure out structures that supported their professional learning, we realized that sort of having data be the focus of those meetings and sort of starting with what are we considering as we work on a planning process was a really great way for us to ensure that the work that we were doing in those meetings was tied directly to what our students and staff need. So it's a practice that I envision us continuing next year. So looking ahead to next year, when you look through the strategic plan that Dr. Vilichevsky was just discussing with you, you will see that in the second column where a lot of the learning and teaching initiatives lie, the area that's focused on professional learning is by far the largest section of the plan. It really do feel in the next upcoming school year that is essential to supporting our forward motion. And so you'll see that, we're really trying to outline exactly what professional learning experiences we feel our staff need and to expand those. One I'll highlight for you is just we're excited about delving into job embedded professional learning, leveraging our math coaches and a few other coaching and consulting positions that we have. And that's something that our staff need and deserve. Another bucket of work is curriculum review, and this is our process really of looking at what is in place and determining if we need to make updates to materials, instructional practices, assessments, et cetera. One of the big accomplishments of the team this year was to really document what our curriculum review process is. We've had the opportunity to sort of go through and pilot this process a few times, and now feel that we have a solid plan. And this will allow us to bring consistency across various reviews as they happen. It also allows us to start to leverage some of our other leaders, such as department heads, of course our curriculum coordinators, but even ensuring that middle school curriculum leads to take a more active role because they have a document to follow that will keep them on track and help them understand the process that we believe will lead to the best result. This will, of course, be a dynamic document that we'll continue to review and update as we go through various curriculum review processes. But this is work that we're really proud of. We did start this year a number of curriculum review areas, and you've heard me talk about most or all of the middle school and the world language, I should say. One other thing I want to highlight here is that you see math implementation team and literacy implementation team listed, and you might think, well, that's not a curriculum review team. But just a reminder that as we're going through that curriculum review process, the identification of a next step is very important in the process. But to ensure that we're going to receive the outcomes that we want, we have to follow it all the way through implementation. So those first few years of adoption of a new program or a new technique really do require a team to make sure that we are following the plan, that professional development is reaping the goals that we anticipate, and then how our students and staff are responding. So that's why those two implementation teams are included in this part of the presentation. Looking ahead to the upcoming year, you've heard about this all through the budget development process, but we'll be having a number of curriculum review teams underway next year. I think that these have been thoughtful decisions as far as where we really are primed to begin this work. We are really thinking about how to form a community with the folks that will be running these teams. I've already met with our leaders and our teacher leaders who will be running these curriculum reviews to walk them through our curriculum review document and to just talk about the supports that they envision needing to help them lead this work. So this will be exciting work. And the final big bucket is this curriculum implementation. Obviously, none of these buckets sort of live on their own. They're all very much connected. This year, you've heard us talk extensively about our new literacy program that has been launched, and you've heard us also talk quite a bit about math. So one other thing I want to highlight tonight is we began this year with a rollout of a common assessment at the middle school level, the iReady assessment. That was something that we decided to move ahead with sort of towards the end of last year, and so this year we sort of considered a pilot, as it was something that we were creating a plan for and implementing at the same time. And I think we met with good success there. We were able to try out sort of two different models of implementation with the program. We were able to get all our teachers trained in using the platform, accessing data, and we also spent time ensuring that everyone across the middle schools had access to student data as well, not just the math and ELA teachers. We were able to start trying out how we might want to use the data systematically going forward. But we're excited with the amount of information that we were able to gather this year. And we feel that this is a really important piece for us to continue leveraging. Again, part of curriculum implementation is not just that first year of launching, so I just want to highlight for you that there are a number of curriculum projects that have been started over the past few years that we continued to give our attention and energies to ensure that they stay underway and that we have continued professional development needed. And looking ahead to next year, we're really excited to be launching some of our career pathways at the high school. That will be something that we devote our time and energy to, continuing, of course, with our math pathways work, as you've heard recently 2 weeks ago in a presentation. And then continuing, of course, our rollout of our core. In regards to iReady, we, next year, our goal is to figure out how we want to standardize our data use from that, and also building the capacity of our teachers to continue to use that data in a variety of ways. So those are the quick highlights. I'm happy to answer any questions or go into depth about any of the bullets that maybe I didn't mention.
I just have one hopefully quick one. So the literacy implementation team you talked about, that actually is part of that sort of cycle, right? The implementation piece is part of the whole cycle. We did call it an abbreviated evaluation to get to ARC Core, given some timelines and things like that. Is there anything that we're finding, maybe it's too early to tell, but is there anything we're finding now that we're almost a year into implementation that tells us anything about, hey, that form of evaluating curriculum can work, right? Or challenged us in these ways, and these are the things that surprised us that we may not have been surprised by had we done a more, traditional pilot and all that sort of thing.
It's a great question. I think one of the obstacles that we knew we would face that has been a reality was just the timing. What we've seen this year in preparing our K-2 teachers to start with ARC Core is having that runway at the end of the school year to get them started. I think it's just made such a difference. Our teachers now have had their, teacher frameworks in hand for a couple of weeks. We didn't have that because of the timing, so that definitely is an obstacle to making a decision, in June, and then not having materials in hand until school is starting. I do think one of the lessons learned about how the process can go quickly is when you really do have the support, of a team that is made up of lots of different stakeholders. I think that really was the key to our success. And having elementary teachers who really were primed and ready to do the work, I think has made a difference. So it is, I would say, the process, but then also thinking about where are you going to be implementing and what are the conditions for implementation, and sort of on those. I would say that's really where the lessons learned, for me anyways, lie.
Thank you. Chuck?
So on the chart you had with new initiatives for 23, 24, I noticed social emotional. Can you expand on that? Because I don't look at that as something that's really new that we're doing, unless I'm misreading that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Let me clarify that. So we will be forming a number of curriculum review groups next year. And so while we have social emotional learning curriculum in place at the elementary level, for example, we've been using a program called Open Circle. The high school, was recently launched, Project Wayfinder, thank you. And so we do have elements in place, but we've heard that our middle schools don't have a consistent program. And we've also heard that at the elementary level, they'd like to take a look beyond Open Circle. So it's really a review of the resources that we're using to teach social emotional competencies, and then also the systems and structures that we have in place to support social emotional learning school-wide, and then for students that might require some extra supports. So if you think of the curriculum review process as sort of like an audit or a program evaluation for what we have in place, that's really where we're headed next year, to see what improvements we can make to our existing systems.
Thank you.
Can I just add one thing to that? One of the things that Dr. Hardy and I are super excited about is we each sat on a team. This year, we had a team of people from Reading that joined a state group to talk about social emotional learning and sense of belonging. And next year, Julian Sullivan, who is one of our lead social workers, and Erica McNamara are actually forming a group to sit on a state team to look at exactly what Dr. Hardy was talking about from a state level as well. So having that voice, we're really, really excited about. So we'll be sharing that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Milczewski, we'll move to the Killam principal search if you want to tee this one up, and then we'll take a motion.
Great. Oh, you want us pulled up, but you want us pulled up in the packet? I'll just get. Never mind, got it right.
You got it?
Okay, so I'd like to start this conversation just by thanking Principal Lebec for her service for the last 7 years of, as Killam principal. Collaborator, super hard worker, been very dedicated to the Killam community. I think led the community through a lot of different challenges over the last several years, including COVID, new curriculum rollout, beginning phase of building project, just a lot of appreciation and respect for Principal Lebec for her leadership. Just a couple of quick things tonight on the process. First, you'll see a proposed process in the packet. So this is a pretty standard process for how we have gone through searches in the past. We are going to, that number of 4 Killam staff members, we are going to expand that a little bit. We've had more than 4 of interest, who expressed interest. I think it's important, given the summer timeline, to open that up to a couple other staff members. And I will be seeking a school committee rep tonight, so hopefully there's someone who wants to move forward and serve in that way. A couple of the questions that stick out, or I think just 2 questions I want to answer tonight, instead of going through the process line by line. 1, why are we deciding to go for the full-time search instead of the interim search on this timeline? 2, what are the expectations around what the pool will look like? So first question around the full-time versus the interim. We decided to go over the full-time search at this point because we feel like we are still in a window where there's optimism that we can land a full-time candidate. We posted this position exactly 1 year later from when we posted the position at Barrows last year, which ended with who we think is a really wonderful principal in Principal Gallegos. So, and last year we had a couple of candidates in the mix that we felt encouraged by at the end. Given that, we felt it made sense to sort of move forward with this, and also since we feel like it's the optimal position to be in is to have a full-time candidate in the role, that we could also pivot to a interim, which is what we'll do if we don't get someone after the search. But we felt there was enough, given our success last year, to go forward with a full-time search. In terms of what the pool will look like, I think there's reason for both, just hesitation and possible optimism. Just the challenge we face is just there's not a lot of people jumping into principal roles right now as we talk about, and it's a late hiring timeline too. With that said, we feel like there is we've posted the position, we already have 12 applicants, several who we think are very strong. I think we've had contact with several candidates in the area already who are planning to apply, who we think are strong. So we are getting initial signals that there are some good candidates who will be in the pool. So we are optimistic that the search will end with someone who's strong in the role, who can jump in and start on July 7th. So I'd just like to open up to any questions, feedback, concerns on the process, and then also from the committee, and also just a conversation around potential school committee rep.
So you're raising your hand to be a rep?
No.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm raising my hand to ask you a question.
So moved.
I second. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please do.
Like, are we raising hands? So given Maria's feedback, is there still room to either add a parent or, maybe the Killam parents you've already includes a parent of a special needs child, but...
Great question. So tonight we had our first, the quick answer is yes, right? But we had our screening committee sort of organizational meeting tonight, so whoever is able to jump on after, I will get up to speed. We only had 2 Killam parents at this point, so they had talked about now blasting it out through their PTO to get some additional parent reps. So if we do not get a parent rep who is also sort of connected with CPAC, I'll contact Maria and see if there's a CPAC representative who wants to jump on too. I think that's great feedback.
Go ahead, Chuck.
Just have a question. So, I don't know, ask this the right way. So, as you just said, it's late in the process, and we ended up getting, in this situation last year. When you're evaluating the candidates, is there a way? I mean, there's probably a good chance a lot of these, whoever you're getting, may have been a finalist somewhere else and didn't get the job for whatever reason. Will that go into your evaluation? You know what I'm trying to say? It's kind of tricky.
It used to be where a lot more of the searches would be like public in the newspaper, and you'd see all the finals and things like that. It's not always as easy to find out on things like that now. But yes, I think we're connected with a lot of the local districts where we would know if someone's been a finalist, and if they didn't get it, some of maybe the rationale on that too.
That would be good information to have.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yep, you're exactly right. Definitely something we explore.
I'm going to be at Disney World for my daughter's birthday on the 29th, so I have to exclude myself.
It's the big day. It's really a one-day commitment on the 29th.
Yeah,
When is it?
the 29th.
29th.
It's a week from today.
And
I could do it if, I'm fine doing it if nobody else is
Anybody
available.
else?
You don't want to arm wrestle?
Huh? I know, if you want it, go for it.
All right.
welcome aboard.
Any other questions?
Carla.
All right, can we take a motion?
I move to approve the Killen Principal search process.
Is there a second? Seconded by Tom. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? 6-0. Thank
Just
you.
want to reassure to the committee, we feel optimistic about the search despite the late timeline.
And this is all day, do you think? Yeah, okay.
8 to 5, I would think. But I'd say 8 block, 8 to 5, and 8 to 3:30 is probably how long it'll last.
Okay. So now we will move on to budget transfers for, these are actually Q3 budget transfers. Ms. Baton, I don't think anything has changed since our discussion on this at the last meeting, correct?
No, nothing has changed.
Carla, maybe we can just go to the motion, see if there's any additional discussion, and keep moving.
I move to
Budget transfers. Sorry.
Move to transfer $740,000 from the Special Education Cost Center to the following cost centers: $645,000 to regular day, $35,000 to technology software, and $60,000 to facilities.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tom. Any discussion on the budget transfers? Okay, all in favor? All opposed? 6-0. Okay, so next we will move to our Student Services Council, Student Services Legal Council Subcommittee recommendation. And Tom and Sarah, I'll hand it off to you.
Okay. Jump in as necessary. Jump in as necessary. So we, as everybody knows, back in March, I think, we launched or created the Legal Counsel Recommendation Subcommittee to look at our Student Services Council. We met early in that process to establish a timeline and a process, various different rubrics and whatnot, which we've included in the packet for people to look at. Part of that process was to go through MASC's information with their sister or parent or sister organization, COSA, I believe is what it's called, for legal counsel that they have, and looking at the different firms that are already represented out there. When we did that, we saw many, many firms that were available, and we invited 14 firms to participate in our process. We focused on, legal and policy updates, how they manage those, communication and training with administration and staff, team meeting participation, when and how they get involved in team meetings, dispute and settlement experience and contract writing, background and standing with key personnel in terms of where they have served at different courts and whatnot, cost, financials, and method of engagement were the 6 criteria. I would say as we went along, we added others that were a little bit more the rest of student services, not just special education related, Title IX, discipline, things like that as well. We covered it with some of these conversations. So Dr. Milchewski, Dr. Stice, and Ms. Wright were part of the group with us as we went through this. We invited 14 firms from that list to participate. A few of them could not because they didn't have enough staff, which was an interesting and recurring theme. But 7 did reply. Of those 7, 1 was our existing council. So we decided to interview the other 6 in the first round and go through a process with them and then decide from the first round who to bring to the final round. And so we brought 3 of the first round firms back to the final round, and our current legal counsel we then brought to the final round as well. Unfortunately, one of those members, Norris, Murray, and Peliquin, had to opt out at the last minute because of staffing issues, which left us with Stoneman, Chandler, Miller, Lyons Law, and Nuttall, McAvoy, and Joyce. In the final round interviews, we had them present 1 or 2 cases that they were involved with in an anonymized way to kind of demonstrate how they work with districts. That was one of the things. We also had them, we give them a very generic case of our own in order to suss out how they would gather information from us and partner with us as part of working through a process. And we closed with other questions that were specific to the firm that we maybe had not had answered yet. We then went through recommendation reviews. Dr. Milczewski and Dr. Stice and team talked with other superintendents, other directors of the student services, getting feedback on these 3 firms that were left. I reviewed or had conversations with multiple opposing counsels, which I found out nobody ever does. But that's another story for another day. And got a lot of good feedback as well from those processes. We then brought back that information together as a group of 5 last Thursday morning, and agreed to recommend to the school committee that we would appoint Stoneman, Chandler, and Miller as our student services legal counsel, in addition to being our existing personnel legal counsel. That was a unanimous decision of both the subcommittee, but also the administration team, after all of the due diligence that we went through. I think a common theme we heard on Stoneman and their team was extremely professional, very deep, rich firm that covers the gamut. You know that they know that they know, and they have a lot of people within their firm that know. So it's not just one person, which we faced in some other cases. We heard collaborative, some of the best were some of the things we heard as well, which doesn't surprise some of us that have worked with them for a little bit. But we will not be working with our existing counsel as this counsel. We will have another primary counsel for Dr. Stice and her team to work with. So Colby, our current counsel, will stay on the personnel side, and we'll have a different partner lead that Dr. Stice and Allison and team work with when they're going through student services related needs. The firm is big enough to handle that, but we know them as well. As part of the conversation as well, we negotiated a few, financial incentives as part of it. So we're being provided 10 hours of free transition services, and the team is really focused on the transition and wanting to make sure that it's done well, effectively. Might take 3 to 6 months to be fully complete in terms of any open cases that we have, but those things that we can transition ASAP, like policy reviews, handbook reviews, training for staff in the fall, I think we're going to want to do those like now, right? Dr. Stice is like, I'm going to do this as soon as you say yes. So, we'll work through that basically based on, or the team will work through that based upon the need and where certain things are. So pause because I may have missed something, or if anybody else wants to add anything, but that's the recommendation and that's the process.
No, I guess I would just highlight what you already said, Tom, in terms of the collaborative nature that it was throughout the process for this firm, and just in terms of collaborating with the districts they work with and internally within their own firm and how they work together, and just really approachable.
Can we take a motion and then we'll see if there's any questions or discussion?
I move to approve Stoneman, Chandler, and Miller LLP as special education counsel.
Can I friendly amendment that to appoint
Point and student services instead of special education.
the Student Services Education Council?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tom. Chuck, did you have a question?
Yeah, and I'm just curious, and Dr. Stice, how do we, so there's obviously files that are in process now. Do those stay with the old firm to finish the case, or does it transfer over?
So that's part of the 10 hours and
It
the
is?
work we're
Okay.
gonna do. And we'll handle each case individually. Those that we can transfer easily, we will make sure we transfer easily. Those that have a good working relationship and we're trying to resolve just a few more issues, we may resolve that and then switch over. But Allison is working very hard with the team chairs to determine which cases. And as Mr. Weiss said, I am absolutely ready to jump in with a list of some of the procedural pieces and trainings that we need to get in place. one of the things they did mention, every firm mentioned during the interview process, that these transitions do happen, and they have a good working relationship among all the firms, and they'll work together to transfer files and have conversations.
Yeah, that's good feedback.
Tom, you mentioned that similar to Colby on the labor side, will be assigned like a partner lead. Do we know who that person is? Did you meet with that person directly?
So we met with two of the associates in our conversations. Colleen Shea, who some of us have traded notes with before, and Justin Gomes. Justin is really their Title IX expert. He's become their Title IX expert, so, he may be still involved in those type of things. But we, and Colleen may very well be involved with other things. The agreement we have with Colby is that, Jen and Allison can meet with Nancy Neville, who's one of the partners and is really, really highly recommended. And she's like the ultimate in collaborative nature, which is really kind of where we're trying to go with it. But it could also vary based upon case. We may see that Colleen's really good at this type of case, and so we want Colleen here and Justin there and Nance there, and there's one other person as well that, are directly involved with this kind of stuff. So that's one of the follow-ups, is to really kind of meet the rest of the team and see. But we've had really, really good feedback on that overall.
That's great.
I'll say one more thing real quick. Sorry, Chuck, go ahead.
Oh, you may have, you touched on the 10 hours. So now that they have the whole pie, if you will, do we see any leverage in our rates for?
That's a good question. What we found is their rates are commensurate with everybody else, basically. One thing that, was pretty common, Lions was an outlier, is that everybody charges a similar rate. The two finalists, other than Lions, are charging the same exact rate together. And they charge it for every, whether it's an associate or a partner. Lions was different in that there's only one partner, and so she charges for her level, but then the associates was a different level. But we just felt like this was the right fit for us from a culture perspective, from an execution perspective and whatnot. So there was a benefit to a degree from a financial perspective of Lions, at least on the outside. We heard some other feedback on the other side too, though, that kind of outweighed that. So, it is what it is.
Thank
Go.
How many attorneys in that firm?
In Stoneman? They have multiple practices. On the education side, I think there's, I want to say 8 or 10, but they have a lot of other, and they have used and leveraged litigation side and things like that as well. McAvoy's about the same, 8 or 10. Lions was 4 or 5. One of the things, Stoneman has more partners that we would directly involved with. They're about the same, actually, in terms of number of partners that McAvoy has as well. They had 3 or 4 partners that we could work with, whereas, and then 5 or 6 associates, but the 2, Colleen and Justin, are the 2 primaries we'd probably be working with.
Okay, thank you.
One other thing I just want to point out that was interesting in all of this, I mentioned before that people said nobody's done this. One of the opposing counsels specifically said, nobody's done as robust a process. Well, Colby said nobody's done as robust a process, so they didn't know how to answer it, which was interesting as feedback point. But also that the opposing counsel said nobody has ever called opposing counsel, and she's heard from the attorneys about our process, and nobody had done such a process, and she wanted people to use it as a model that they should use going forward. So we got lucky, I guess, but we worked well as a team to get it done.
Sounds like you're going to give a presentation at MASC next year.
I am giving a presentation at MASC next year, but not on this.
2. All right, very good. Anything else on this topic? All right, let's move to the vote. All in favor? All opposed? 6-0. Tom and Sarah, thank you for all the work. I know this was a ton of work, and obviously a unique process as well. So thank you for all the work to get us to this point. Okay, so the next order of business is a letter in support of the park grant application. Let me provide I'll try and provide a quick overview here. The gist of it is Phase 2 of the Birch Meadow project involves sort of redoing the area where the tot lot, the basketball courts, the tennis courts are behind the high school on Bancroft there. One of the big sort of gems of the new, largely it's going to have the same sort of facilities, but one of the gems of that phase is building a fully accessible playground where the tot lot is. And so that's obviously quite appealing. The town is applying for a grant from a program called PARC. It's a state program called PARC, P-A-R-C. The deadline for this is in mid-July. They're on track to hit that deadline, certainly with their grant application. It would enable, the town would be eligible for up to $500,000 in funding to support that project if we were awarded the PARC grant. One of the nuances of the PARC grant is that the property that the grant is applied to has to be owned by the town. Portions of, the plot plan is a little bit complicated, but portions of the land that are involved in that sort of recreational complex there are currently deeded to the school district. So we would need to, if the grant is awarded, we would need to, procedurally how this goes is we would essentially declare it as unused property and deed it to either the town or the select board or the recreation department, so that the town had control and then could accept the grant. So the letter in the packet is really intended to do two things. It's intended to, one, just sort of express our support for the grant itself being awarded to the town of Reading. And then the second thing is to express our intent, and it's just intent at this point, but to express our intent to go ahead with that transfer of land should the grant be awarded. I've had discussions with Dr. Milczewski about this. We've had discussions with Fidel about this. You know, we don't think there's a practical difference in the way that any of the property of the land is used. I mean, today that's all operated and maintained by the town, despite it apparently, technically being deeded to the schools. So we don't really see a particular downside to this. The other thing that would have to happen, the town meeting would have to pass a deed restriction committing the usage of that space to recreation. So there isn't a possibility that we hand over control and then the town builds condos, for instance, right? Which, might satisfy some concerns that folks might have. So that's all I'll say from a run-up perspective. We can see if there's any questions. Aaron?
Can you clarify the boundaries beyond the tot lot that we're talking about? Are we talking about basketball courts, tennis courts?
And the baseball
Are we talking-
field.
And Majors Field?
Yep.
Majors too?
It's part of Phase 2.
Is that the one?
Majors is the big one.
Is that the
No,
one?
the Majors Little League
Yeah, the
field.
Little League field, the one that's,
That's called the Little League Majors
the one that's
field.
adjacent to the.
The
tennis
one
courts and
that's
The one
basketball.
right
by the
next to
parking
the
lot
park.
that
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, they're
So
both right
all
by
of
the
that
parking lot.
land with the courts, okay.
It's not Morton.
Not Morton.
Is there any risk to our high school programs having first priority to those courts and fields when our high school teams need them? First priority?
I mean, those are all administered by the recreation department
Yeah.
today. And I don't think we have run into any issues.
Tennis courts, do we have first, I think we have first right at it right now.
Yeah.
And that's by Zaya first, right?
Oh.
So, I think that's a legitimate question that we should make sure is clarified. Absolutely.
I'm still, I'm so burned by the Y in the swimming pool that I hesitate to give up control of anything that could impact our programs having priority, I guess. That's where I'm coming from.
So here's what I would suggest. Again, we're expressing intent tonight. I think we can work through, there's going to be time before a grant's awarded and accepted and all that sort of stuff. I think we can work through whether there's an opportunity to, execute a 99-year lease or one of those kinds of things, right? On the back end of this. In order to express support for the grant being awarded. I hear the concern. I mean, I think we had the same concerns when we talked to Fidel. And, Fidel, I don't think with any of the people that are sitting in their seats today, we'd have that issue, but obviously you worry about who's in that seat the next time and the next time and the next time. And, if those relationships are different, is the outcome different? So I think we can, again, for tonight, we're really expressing intent. But we can explore some of those scenarios and what we might be able to do to protect ourselves for the tennis courts in particular. Go ahead, Carla.
I had similar thoughts of, can we, why should we relinquish totally? Like, can we do it temporarily
Yeah.
and then take it back?
No, is the answer.
That's bait and switch.
No, you
Can
put it
we-
in there, right?
No, I mean, the way we would do it, I think the way that we would have to do it would be, and there are examples of this, but would be, we transfer ownership, but part of that transfer of ownership is a very long-term lease. Like, you know, you'll see leases with terms like until 13 years after the last descendant of King Charles dies, right? For instance, right? So, you know, you get those sorts of scenarios where it's, you know, quite far out in the future, like farther than folks can comprehend. So I think we can, you know, we can explore that. I want to clarify, like, this letter is about intent, right?
The Burbank land, that land is on a 30-year land. The town owns that land.
Right, and leases it to the
We
arena.
lease it to Burbank. The lease just renewed.
Yeah,
Yeah, something like that.
yeah. Go ahead.
Can we, is any other land in the Birch Meadow complex ours? Are we giving it all or just this subset?
So we would only need to give the portion that would be improved by the grant for the purposes of this. Now, there may be, you know, surveying work and carving up of plots to make that happen, but there isn't a requirement that we give up, you know, the field house or, you know, anything else kind of in, you know, in the complex. It's the portion that's improved by the grant, is my understanding.
I think to Aaron's point, and whether it's a 99-year lease or it's part of the deed for recreation that RMHS Athletics gets first, you know, access or things like that, I think is something that we definitely should caveat into that, at least in our conversations.
Yep.
And again, it's not because of the people in the seats now, it's because of what will happen 15, 20 years from now, which is exactly what happened with YMCA, right? So we want to make sure we're protecting ourselves from that, but intent and purpose and getting $500,000 to do this and make the tot lot accessible and whatnot, support that.
Any further discussion? And, yeah, sorry, just one last thing. Just to be clear, you know, all those points are well taken. I think that's the approach to take. We have to take another affirmative action before any of this happens. Like, we have to affirmatively declare, I think we're essentially declaring the land as surplus for the purpose of transferring it. So there is certainly an opportunity for the school committee to hit the brakes on this at some point, should we not be able to work this out.
You could sell it to the town for this full-day kindergarten amounts for the next few years.
Like where your head's at.
Adele
Go ahead, Carla.
hopefully went to bed.
That might undermine the value of the $500,000 grant, but, you know, we'll see.
Bill Brown actually brought up to me about when the high school was built, that there was a certain amount of impervious land that had to be maintained.
Yeah.
So, and it, I know.
So I talked to Fidel about that as well today. The application of that is about the Aquifer Protection District, which doesn't extend into any of the plots that are on this land. In the Aquifer Protection District, which is at the sort of north end of town, Franklin Street, down through Birch Meadow, like the school, not the complex, the school, there's a DEP regulation, I think it is, that only 25% of land can be impervious, or can be covered by impervious surface. And so if there are ways that you can exceed it. You can put in dry wells and things like that that allow you to catch rainwater and return it to the groundwater, the water table. But none of these plots appear to be involved in the Aquifer Protection
So it
District.
wasn't tied into the building of the MSBA process building this building.
It may have been, but these are not on the same plot of land as this building is on. So I don't know that they would have been tied into the
Right.
MSBA process.
Right.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, I guess that's
Yeah.
more my concern.
Okay.
If it's tied into the MSBA process, we want to make sure we don't do something over there that's going to
Yeah.
mess us up over here.
There also, as I understand it, the changes they shouldn't change the amount of impervious
It doesn't seem like
surface.
it,
It's,
right.
you know,
Right.
it's largely the same use and the same layouts as exist today, so. Okay. So we'll give some lawyers some money on this one, but we'll work through it. Any further discussion? All right, we'll move to the vote. All in favor? This is just sending the letter.
Did we do the motion?
Did we do the motion?
No.
No.
Oh, all right, let's take a motion.
Move to send a letter in support of park grant application.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tom. I'm going to assume no further discussion. All in favor? All opposed? 6-0. Okay.
Brush up on your Roberts rules.
He's giving you a hard time.
Late.
Don't worry about it.
Getting late.
Ignore that.
All
Today.
right, I'm gonna assume we're gonna table the policy updates, but we do have a few more things I think we need to get through quickly here. So the next order of business, obviously the committee all knows that town meeting approved the creation of a special education stabilization fund in April. We still have some work to do, I think, to form policies around how we're gonna do that on a regular basis and how we're gonna access it and so forth on a regular basis. But for tonight, with Ms. Baton having given us projections we feel pretty comfortable in terms of the end-of-year position, we're looking at about $285, I think was the number? $285,000 that we're projecting as the year-end balance. I think tonight we'd like to take a vote to choose a portion of that to allocate to the Special Education Stabilization Fund, the remainder, which of course will kick back to regeneration at the end of the year. Anything else I missed procedurally?
No,
or-
that's exactly right. And the balance is still hovering about 285. It hasn't shifted much.
So we need a number to do a motion, so let me just, yeah, go ahead, Tom.
I was going to go with that from a number perspective. If I recall correctly, the original bucket was like 410,000. We reduced it to about 250, 260,000. So are we short 150,000 going into next year that this fund could stabilize if we need to?
Tom, when you say the original bucket,
The backstop of
Backstop,
the three placements that we were.
the three
yeah.
placements, that's right. It's about 420,000.
And we reduced it to 2 in next year's budget?
We reduced it to 220 in next year's
Oh,
budget.
220,000.
So it's 200,000, that's the difference then.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when was the last time, sorry,
Go ahead, go ahead.
when was the last time we've gone above 220 in this type of placement, in, the backstop placements?
Well, we've been doing the backstop placements for the last 2 years, so it hasn't,
But have we, spent it? Have we spent it for backstop placements as opposed to transfers to other regions and stuff like that?
we have spent it by transferring it to other areas. So the end-of-year balance last year was 202.
Let me clarify my question.
Yeah, sorry.
Of the normal backstop that we set aside for 410,
Yeah.
over the last 5 years, which is, or even 3, whatever's a good number, how many times have we had to dip into that 410 specifically for out-of-district placements or other reasons that backstop is there? As opposed to moving it out. We moved it to cover something else that we wanted to do. I'm not worried about that right now, but specifically for something that we would be able to use this money for going forward.
So I'll try to answer your question. We've only established the backstop over the past 2 years. Prior to that, we've had several $100,000 of savings in the out-of-district tuition account that we've transferred to other areas of the operating fund. Does that,
I understand your answer, but it doesn't answer my question. Jen, do you know
I'm not
how many
sure.
we've had to over the last 3 or 4 years? Say this was an unexpected placement that we have to now pay for?
I don't, we meet so regularly and have an idea of what's going on, and then we work with Susan to put money aside, kind of do our, if this happens, what would be the high cost of a school? So that calculation is ongoing, and we haven't hit, holy moly, this was completely off the radar, we don't have the money for this right now. But I think that's part of the work that we're doing to constantly be up to date on what's happening and working the numbers.
and I don't understand your question, Tom. We budget for every student, then we set aside this unallocated backstop amount, and then I also budget for students that, we're watching carefully. This year, those students who we've been watching carefully, some of them have gone out of district. It's really hard to give you a hard and fast number because there's such a ebb and flow. That's the best I can do.
Yeah, I guess.
So let me suggest,
again,
let me
yeah.
suggest this. So we reduced the backstop to 220,000 for next year, so we reduced it by 200,000. I don't think that we've blasted through the full 400 and so thousand in any recent year, because we would have had more discussion about it. Why don't I suggest for now, until we sort of work through the policy and the longer-term decision-making, we reserve 100,000 into the stabilization fund. That'll leave us at 3, which is less than our historic backstop. But this isn't the only backstop that we have, right? There are, reserve funds and other options out there. To access should we have a very unusual year in terms of, surprise out-of-district placements. And what is in the budget plus the 100,000 we would set aside tonight aren't sufficient to cover that. So that would be my recommendation. It also allows us to, sort of responsibly continue to regenerate a decent bit to the town, and with more time to sort of work through the policy piece, we can have a sort of a clearer answer next year on what we want to reserve.
I have just like one thing to I don't know if we probably gonna make the same point. Do you want to go first? Or you want me to?
No, why don't you go
I'd
ahead?
say just to possibly give another devil's advocate stance on that too, is I agree with supporting sort of being good financial stewards and supporting regeneration of the town side too. I also think we have made a pretty public case for why this is necessary, and with, $280,000 that's potentially at play, only $100,000 in there, when I think that the special education out of district landscape we're seeing, and a lot of other districts has become more volatile.
That's one kid. It's one out of district.
One, I just don't know if 100 moves the needle for us as much as we were hoping to this year, to give us some more flexibility sort of in planning for future years too.
Can I just add, that I think we were also pretty transparent at town meeting that because of this, we weren't gonna be giving back what we have historically given back, so I don't think anyone would be surprised.
You mean in terms of this year specifically, not necessarily
Yeah.
in all, yeah.
Because we were setting this up, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's a fair point.
We would at least get it set up in year one, and then I think, we can reassess after that, but I think our goal this year was to get something, especially as Susan departs, that we feel good that this is in place with a good safety net.
Yeah, I think just to add to Erin's point, this isn't only about students that we know in district. We could have a student move in that has, 2 students move in that have collaborative placements that we have to fund immediately, and that we would never be on our radar because they just happen to move into the town. So there is another whole piece besides the work that we're doing in district. There's a whole piece of move-ins that we can't control.
If we did 200,000, it makes us whole relative to our
I was gonna say 150 was the
backstop.
number I had in my mind. but-
Susan,
I'm sorry for the interruption. I was thinking in the same line as you, Sean. If we set aside 200 or even $220,000, that's about 2 out-of-district tuitions. And it does bring us up to the total 440 or so backstop that we've had in total over the past 2 years. Also, I'd like to share that this year, through a town-wide insurance compliance requirement, we needed to purchase $50,000 of cybersecurity. And after speaking with our town manager about that, I shared with him that whatever turnback we give to the town, we would likely need to use $50,000 of that total turn back to pay for the cybersecurity, since it was totally unbudgeted and really not on anyone's radar until the spring. So I think it might be important for a school committee to consider that, too.
So does that come out of that comes out of the 285 then? So now
We've
we're-
already
accounted for
purchased,
It is
we've
already
already
accounted
purchased
for?
it,
Oh, okay, all
yes,
right,
so.
okay, I gotcha. So we can kind of take
You know,
credit for that, if you
consider,
will.
exactly,
you know?
consider
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Go ahead, Carla.
I guess my thought is similar to Chuck's, that in order to establish this in our first year, we weren't going to be giving much back, if at all. That's how I kind of look at it, especially for establishing it for the first year.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
No, this is where I'll disagree. I think having, as part of that town meeting discussion, it was, we have to be good stewards on both sides. It's not that we're going to establish it all in 1 year.
Right.
And we know that we can go, as of right now, at least legally, up to about 960,000, give or take. We're not going to do that, obviously, in 1 year, but we also talked that this would be built up over a period of time, not bam, you're done in 1 year. And obviously, we're not going to be with 285,000, but I don't think we should be going and saying, I think we would erode confidence, personally, if we go and say we're going to take everything that we would be giving back to free cash, or that as large a percentage as what's being talked about right now. And I think that would be a problem. I was originally thinking 150. 100 is the residential placement. That's not a normal placement, right? So most placements aren't 100. But I think even so, we still have the existing 220 that's out there from a backstop perspective. So if we go 150, we're at 370. We've never in the last 5 years come close to using the 420. That's still plenty of backstop. It builds up something while keeping confidence from a town meeting perspective that we're not just willy-nilly throwing money in here as a reserve. I definitely don't want to go above 200,000, but I'm very hesitant going even to 200,000 with that. We're partners and stewards with the town. We're not just throwing something in here that hopefully we never have to use. That's the reality, right? We hope we never have to use this. Obviously, when interest goes up, eventually we're gonna have to start spending some of it, but I think I'm more comfortable with 150 as a number.
Yeah, I wouldn't characterize it as willy-nilly. I mean, yeah, I think we were pretty clear with town meeting. I hear what you're saying, but I think that they knew this was a startup thing, so I'm not saying every year we don't give anything back to free cash. I think that's why I think this year, maybe it's a little more, but I had the sense that people expected that, but maybe you disagree, but.
Remind me what the cap is, what percentage of our overall budget?
2% of our net school spending, so about $950,000.
950?
Is the cap.
That's the state cap.
Yeah, I think we'd assumed
Right.
we would set a policy probably far below that, at some
Right,
point. but
right.
We haven't gotten there yet.
But the implication being, if we were to set aside a larger sum this year, we could presumably add a lesser amount next year, depending on whether it's spent or not. But if it was not spent, is that correct math? Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm in agreement that I thought we fairly presented this to town meeting, that we're going to be looking to establish this fund. I thought we justified why we're establishing this fund and why it's in the best interest of the school budget. I would support the 200.
Can I just, what would we, I missed what would we, if we did the 200, what will we actually, assuming there's nothing else, what will we be putting back into free cash, 85,000?
85,000.
Yeah, I'm not terribly comfortable going past that. I mean, I know there's only a week left in the fiscal year, but we don't want to budget down to, you know.
No, I was just
I know you're
curi-
not
yeah.
suggesting it, I'm just saying, I think 200 is kind of a practical ceiling in my mind. Go ahead, Tom.
I'll make one final thing here. For lack of a better way to say it, this is a rainy day fund for a specific use, right? Everything that we don't return to free cash cannot be used for anything else we're talking about in the future. So we can't use it for full-day kindergarten. We can't use it for any of the contracted negotiations we're going on. We can't use it for anything else that we have talked about that we want to do. We can't use it for extending, the school day at elementary because we have to hire more staff, right? The reality is, it's locked. It can only be used for special education needs if we need to hire somebody. Maybe if we need to build up somebody in one of the lead programs or the SOAR program or the SAIL program, we can use it for that, right? Or sending somebody out, but it's otherwise locked.
I think we all know that.
But we have a lot of initiatives that we're talking about as a committee that even $50,000 can make a difference about whether we can do that year or not. And no, there's no guarantee that we get it back once we give it to free cash. So I don't want to assume that. There's none whatsoever. But we've also looked at the forecasts for the next couple of years at FinCom-related meetings, and it's 2.2, 2.4%. These are not good years that are being forecast. And we're going to, I'm not comfortable with 200,000. I can get to 150, maybe 175. But I think we're still there's other things we're going to need the money for that we will not be able to use it for once it's in this fund. And I was the one who wanted this fund in the first place, right?
Yeah.
But we hand over money to free cash, and we are completely giving up control over that money. There's no guarantee that we're going to get a higher percentage of free cash next year. That is, we have zero control then.
Yeah, I would also say, other than the sort of the fuzzy, the trust factor, which is maybe a little bit fuzzy, 50,000 isn't going to move the needle on how people perceive the free cash balance, right? So, Sarah, where are you at? I don't think we've heard from you.
Yeah, I think we've given a significant amount of money back in free cash in previous years that we haven't even seen a return on that. And
We have, absolutely.
we've given back, what was it, $800,000 one year?
Well, but the use of free cash each year gets us 4% budget years, like we had, this year, for instance, so.
And last year.
Yeah.
I think giving something back would be good, but I think we made the case to establish the fund, so I kind of the 200-ish. I think if we wanted to wiggle down to 175 to make Tom feel a little more bought in, I'd be willing to do that, but I don't think $100,000 is really.
Would somebody like to make a
doing what
motion and get us
we said to
started?
do.
Anybody? You don't have to do it, and somebody else could do it. Just throw a number on it.
I move to contribute $175,000 to the Special Education Stabilization Fund.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anybody want to discuss and/or amend that? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Thank you. All right, can we take a motion to table D2 and D3 until our next meeting?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Lights are going out. Better go home.
Seconded by
Motion to
Tom.
turn the lights
All in
on.
favor for tabling? Chuck, you in favor of tabling? Okay, all opposed, 6-0, thank you. All right, superintendent summit evaluation. We're gonna blast through these last couple things here. So.
One of the most important things we do.
It's very important, it's very important. It is very important, but the reason that we can blast through it is because there's tremendous consistency from members of the committee on the evaluation, as you saw, obviously, reading the individual ones. Just the one comment I'll make, I think there are something like 17 or 18, sort of ratings, throughout the forum, between the 9 focus indicators, the 4 standards, et cetera, et cetera. There were only 2 examples where it wasn't like a rough consensus at one, rating point, and maybe one or 2 people either one click to the left or right of that. And those examples tended to be about sort of how you perceive the goals. Do you perceive the goals as achieving everything that is part of part of the multi-year goal, or achieving what somebody might view as sort of reasonable progress, in 1 year against some multi-year effort? So they're not even inconsistencies in sort of how we evaluate, Dr. Milczewski's performance, so much as that's how we think about, the goal and how to rate that. So Obviously, strong feedback across the board, a very, very strong evaluation and rating once again this year. The richness is in the individual comments, so I encourage anybody who's, God love you, still watching at this point, to read the individual review evaluations in the packet. Any further, or why don't we take a motion, and then we'll see if anybody wants to make any additional comments.
I move to approve the consensus superintendent summative evaluation.
Is there a second? Seconded by Tom. Any further discussion or comments folks want to make? Chuck?
I would just like to thank Dr. Milichewski just to make this a fun evaluation to do. You really did a great job, so thank you.
I think fun is stretching it a little bit.
I was trying to wonder what your hobbies are, Chuck.
That's the,
Okay. Any further
I just
discussion?
want to thank the committee too, just for the feedback, as always, the feedback, the support, the challenge. I feel the committee pushes our team and supports our team, and I think we really appreciate everything you do to continue to move our district forward. I also just like to thank so many of these efforts. The feedback reflects the work that others are leading too. So I just wanted to make sure to acknowledge whether that's work of teachers, whether that's work of principals, whether it's work of central office staff. So I think this to me is more of a signal of just like enthusiasm around some of the good work happening across our district, more than I see it just as a reflection of myself as a leader too. So I just wanted to acknowledge that I think that this speaks positively about just the health of the direction of the district and the direction of the district, more so than just me as a singular person. I am only as effective as the 1,000 staff members we have across the district leading great work every day. So I'd just like to thank all the staff for doing great work for our kids. I think that shows in this.
And that's why everybody rated collaboration very highly. So with that, we will move to the vote. All in favor? And all opposed, 6-0. Okay, I think I'm handing over the gavel to Dr. Milichewski.
Great, so time for reorganization. So how we'll handle this as same as last year, we will take nominations for chair. And then once we hear from a couple of any nominations, we'll open up discussion on any of the nominations. And then we will move forward to a roll call vote on anyone who has been nominated. At that point, I will then turn over the gavel to the new chair or chair to be able to lead the process on the vice chair. So I'm going to take the nominations, and then after we take the nominations, it sounds like if there's pause, close out the nominations, then open it up to discussion too. I did get a little refresher from Colleen and Colby on just the process here too. So in case of some weird, funky scenarios, we have that here as well. All right, so just like to open up with any nominations. Chair.
nominate Tom.
Any other nominations?
I'll nominate Sean.
Oh, why'd you gotta do that?
Sorry.
You can decline it if you want to.
You can decide it.
Any other nominations? Okay, hearing none, we'll now close out any nominations, so we'll open up for discussion on either, both either Tom or Sean.
Can they arm wrestle for?
No one arm wrestled Tom.
Let's go back and look at Robert's rules of where.
There's no arm wrestling in Robert's rules.
Can you both make a statement?
Yeah, I'll make a statement. Look, I think our committee is highly functional at this point. I'm not terribly concerned about the outcome of this, and I have been in past years, frankly. So, you know, that's not exactly. I'm not making a super strong pitch. I would be happy to serve as chair again. I do find it enjoyable. I'd be happy to do it again. But if the outcome is otherwise, I'm not going to cry myself to sleep tonight. So, I'll put it that way.
What he said. You know, whatever happens, happens. I think, you know, we both have done a good job in the role. We both can do it. Either one of us can keep us moving. Anybody else on this table can keep us moving. So, you know, we're a team.
I've been happy with how the committee has run for the past 2 years. I think it's, we have all been working together to do what's best for the district. So I'd be happy with either one of you.
Any other discussion?
Can I ask a clarifier? My brain's not working anymore at this point. So last year you were the chair. Were you the chair? Who was the chair the year before that?
Chuck.
Chuck.
And she didn't include that in the 2 years.
Yeah.
Before that.
Everything's been going great since we got stuck out of that seat.
Burn.
All right.
I think she's
Any other
happier about the
discussion?
guy to her right.
Let's call for discussion. Okay, go ahead, Erin.
I think we all feel similarly that you are both positive outcomes. So this is a hard vote to take. I don't want to put you guys on the spot, but at the same time, I feel a little put on the spot.
Why don't I make it easy? I'll let Tom, we'll let Tom have it, we'll let Tom have a turn. We'll let Tom have a turn. I'm happy to step. I don't, like, whatever weirdness would happen in the next minute is more destructive than, than anything else,
That's
so.
what
I'm, you know.
I know, I wish we could do the combination votes, because I think one of the things, am I allowed to say this? No?
Say
whatever you want.
Just of two, and like the balance of having kind of a lot of different viewpoints, the chair and the vice chair, I've appreciated that, because I think it's representative of different points of view and, you know, groups in town. So I think that that has been a real benefit,
We'll have
and so that would,
vice chair nominations in just a moment, so.
which,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay,
All right, I'll step back, so you can just take a vote on Tom and see if he can manage to scrounge up 4 votes.
roll call vote, starting with, so I'll have roll call vote for Tom as chair. Start with Chuck,
Yeah, yay.
Aaron,
That's what you're supposed to say.
Aye.
Sarah. Tom,
Aye.
John,
Yes,
Carla.
Aye.
All right, 6-0.
all right.
Don't you want to bang it?
You want me to?
Can you seat me down there? So I can-
What's that?
Can you seat me a little further down the table next to me?
We'll see what happens now. So now we'll open the floor for vice chair nominations. Are there any vice chair nominations?
I'll nominate Aaron.
Nominate Aaron. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, going once, going twice,
Still have to vote it.
closed, but I'm closing nominations, right? So now we'll do the vote. All right, Chuck,
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
Tom, aye, John,
Aye.
Carla.
Aye.
All right, so there we go.
Can I make
Get
our
your
final
balance
motion?
again.
Good job, everyone.
You can if you'd like to.
I move to adjourn.
And second.
Seconded by Sarah. Not debatable. All in favor? Aye. All right. Good night, everybody.